We have 9 members present. The next one in makes a quorum. And if we get 2 more, we can do the ordinances. In the absence of the next one in, we can't start the meeting. Oh, all right. Okay, we're ready. That's how you can tell. Good morning. This is a meeting of the Los Angeles City Council on Tuesday, February 13th, 2001. There are 15 council districts. There are 3 meetings a week, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday at approximately 10 o'clock. We are being viewed on Channel 35. We're also available by council phone, and you can see this. If you're a real glutton for punishment, you can see it again tonight, and you can see it again on the weekend. And having said that, Mr. Clerk, call the roll.
Bertson, Chick, Fuhrer, Galanter, Holden, Hernandez, Miskowski, Pacheco, Padilla, Riley Thomas, Florence, Wax, Walters, Ferraro, 11 members present, and a quorum, Madam President.
All right, thank you. Let's go to the first item.
Before starting the regular approval of the minutes.
Yes, okay. Without objection, the minutes are approved.
Commendatory resolutions for approval.
And those 2.
Before starting the regular agenda, there's a few items to be continued and referred. Item number 6, a request from Building and Safety Department and Council District 8 to continue that matter till February 20th. Item number 6.
Without objection, Mr. Ridley Thomas, that's okay with you? Item 6 is continued to February 20th.
Item number 12, a request that that matter be continued till February 27th.
All right, without objection, item 12 is continued.
Item number 18, a request by Council District 11 to continue that matter till the 14th, 1 day till the 14th.
1 day. All right, without objection, that's continued for 1 day.
Item number 37, a request that that matter be referred to the IT and GS Committee.
All right, if there's no objection, that will be so referred.
Item number 47, a closed session item, request from the city attorney that matter be continued till February 16th.
Okay, without objection, item 47 is continued.
On the regular agenda, item number 13 is the appointment of a commissioner, the reappointment of Bonnie L. Herman to the Board of Directors of the Metropolitan Water District.
All right, Yes, well, it was a recommendation of the chair. I was the only one there. So we have a recommendation of the chair. Mr. Fewer moves it, Mr. Burnson seconds. Open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote. Open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote. Nothing's clicking. There we go.
12 eyes.
All right, that's approved. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. It's an honor to serve. Thank you.
Look forward to your continued service.
Thank you.
Next item. Forthwith on that, please.
Items number 1 through 11 are items for which are noticed for public hearing. We now have 12 members, so item number 4, I believe there's someone from the public who wishes to be heard.
We have cards on 4 and 8 in that batch. So let's, before we do those, do we have any specials? Members of the council, any specials 1 through 11?
For 2 weeks?
I'm sorry, item 7?
2 weeks.
All right, Ms. Mizikowski asks that item 7 be continued for 2 weeks,
That would be February 27th.
February 27th. Any other specials, 1 through 11, except for 4 and 8, which we're going to get to right now? All right, on item 4, Melrose Larry Green. And then stay up there because you're the only card on item 8 as well. Item 4.
Well, okay. Good morning, everybody. What a beautiful morning in Los Angeles. These meetings should start at 10 o'clock. I got 10:30. I'm a busy man. Everybody here is busy. People come all over the Southland, and I know you're already on the clock, but all these people here are not on the clock. Item number 4 has to do with graffiti abatement. 1061 West 62nd Street. Hearing a motion required for $7,064.44 assessment related to covering the cost of barricading and exterior painting and/or graffiti abatement of the buildings, cleaning and fencing the lot. Well, let me tell you about graffiti. Graffiti is a problem. I live in the Hollywood area. There's a tagger with a tag NWS up and down Beverly Boulevard. I think that the solution for graffiti ought to be, and Joel Wax once said this, if we can do this, cutting off the fingers of people that want to commit graffiti. I'm Melrose Larry Green. Thank you.
Madam
All right.
President,
Yeah, Mr. Ridley Thomas.
I thought that Mr.
Yes.
Melrose Larry Green was a devotee of nonviolence.
Well, do it non-violently.
All right, thank you so
Maybe the
much.
tips of the fingers.
All right,
thank you.
have we now settled that? All right, that was item 4. And, Mr. Green, on item 8.
Yes. Now, this is a great one, and I'm really glad that I saw this one. Item number 8 is continued consideration of hearing protests and ordinance first consideration relative to the improvement and maintenance of the Washington Boulevard Streetscape Lighting District. And this motion basically wants to assure that streetlights are not installed, that the assessment cannot be enacted for various reasons. And this basically is interesting because I love Washington Boulevard. That used to be the west side of L.A. when L.A. ended at Western Avenue. And I'd like to know what's the problem with the Washington Boulevard Streetscape Lighting District. Tell me more about it. Where's the beef? Give me more information. Please, pray tell. Thank you. How are you, Councilman? Nice to see you. I want to know more about this. Tell me more about it.
Hang on, here we go. All right, on item 8, in Council District 10, Mr. Holden, did you want to respond at all to this, or?
Item 8, we have to have it continued. Give me a month on that, please.
Oh, all right.
Thank you very much.
All right, item 8 will be continued for 30 days, March 16th.
March 16th.
Okay, we have before us then items 1 through 5 and 9 through 11. Open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
12 eyes.
Those are approved. And that includes 9, 10, 11 were ordinances. Next item.
Items number 14 through 23 on the regular agenda are items for which public hearings have been held.
All right.
18 has already been continued. Ms. Kowski is
Correct.
excused.
Okay, items 14 through 23. Any specials?
A technical correction
Yes.
on 23.
On 23, technical correction. Would you like to make it now?
With your permission,
Please.
the final instruction is to have personnel deal with the a report to the council every 6 months on the department's observance of safety rules and procedures, it should be the Department of Finance rather than the Personnel Department. And that will
Okay.
satisfy.
Okay. Everybody got that? Open the roll on items 14 through 23 with the exception of 18, which was continued. Close the roll, tabulate the vote.
11 eyes.
Those are approved forthwith on 21, please. Next.
Items number 24 through 46, except for items number 37, which has been referred, and a motion is required on 34 and 46, and as much as there's more than one on each file.
All right, we have cards on, we'll call these special. We have cards on 42, 46. Conrad, are you with me? 42, 46, both have cards. That was as far as you went, right? Okay. So we'll call 42 and 46 special. Those coming later.
Madam Chair?
It's another, I'm sorry?
Are we calling item 34 special?
We are now looking for specials, anywhere between 24 and 46.
I was just going to move the ad hoc committee's recommendation on children, youth, and their families on item 34.
Okay.
Is that a concurrence with the CLA's office?
I'm sorry, and you want to call 34 special?
On
All right,
34?
so we're going to call 30, Ms. Walters wants to call it special, so
Okay.
34 will be. And item 40, Mr. Wax has asked that we hold, we're going to call that special. Anybody else? Items 24 through 46. We have now special 34, 40, 42, and 46. Okay, open the roll on the balance, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
11 eyes.
Those are approved.
Item number 24 is an ordinance. Do you wish to hold that until you have 12 members?
Oh, I guess we're going to have to. Thought we had 12 members. No. Yes, let's revote on item 24 so we're sure we have 12. Open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
12 eyes.
Okay. So 24 is approved. And we are up to,
Up to number 48 and 49 on the supplemental agenda number 1. That's items for which public hearings have not been held.
all right, now we have cards on both of those. So let's call those specials. We'll call both of those specials. And we
And-
also have cards on 50.
It's too late.
No, 34 was called special. We're not up to it yet. So,
So 48, 49, and 50 are called special.
yes. All right, now, where are we? I have red marks all over this agenda here.
Back to item number 34, called special by Councilmember Walters.
Madam President,
Yes, Mr. Padilla.
request that we take item 48 out of order. There's only one or two speaker cards, if any, and I think the matter can be disposed with rather quickly.
Is there any objection to taking item 48 out of order? Hearing none, you should be so, no, that's 46, sorry.
Thank you.
Wait a minute. 48. You're right, we have only two cards. All right,
Madam President, can we also have 41 forthwith?
yes, 41, forthwith on 41.
20 and item 43 forthwith? You mentioned
Sure,
21.
why not?
Okay. Thank you.
Item 20 and item 43 forthwith. All right, we're on item 48 now, out of order. And I'm going to call first Montezuma Esparza and Richard Fajardo.
Madam President, members of the council, I've been pleased to provide, as president of Buena Vision of Boyle Heights, service to the residents for the last 15-odd years. I believe that we have entered into a beneficial agreement with Adelphia that will expand the service in the area, provide additional capital to provide state-of-the-art service, and we request that the council approve this transfer. Be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you.
I just simply want to include, as counsel for Buena Vision, we've included in your packet a letter indicating an intention to continue internet service and within a few months also to include service to the free service, internet service for the schools, libraries as part of this arrangement.
Great, thank you. That closes the public hearing. Mr. Padilla.
Thank you, Madam President and colleagues. I would ask you for your support of this item. And the reason I wanted it to be called special and to hear from the applicants is because of what we did through committee. Unlike a lot of the other transfers that have come through the council and through committee in the last 2 years, when this item first came to committee, it did not include the provisions for the schools and the libraries and other public facilities in the district. But as we know, that cable companies have changed and evolved, and new technologies exist and new services exist. We wanted to promote the upgrade of facilities in this particular franchise area, but at the same time keep the commitment to the community and to the schools of that area, and treat this franchise area no less than we have treated and provided for in other communities throughout the city. So I actually thank Buena Vision for their commitment and their cooperation as reflected in the ordinance today, and again, request your support of this transfer.
Let me just, I'm going to call Mr. Pacheco in 1 second. I just want to tell you that because Mr. Fewer has to recuse himself from this one, we do not have 12 in the room to vote on this right now. But as long as we're in the middle of it, we might as well finish. We have to have 12 people to pass an ordinance on the first reading. Mr. Pacheco, it's your turn. We're waiting for Mr. Wax. Go ahead.
Madam President, colleagues, I simply wanted to rise to commend Councilmember Padilla for working. Thank you. I wanted to rise and commend Councilmember Padilla for working so hard on this. I believe that the intent of my colleague is to raise the bar as we bring in cable companies, as they come in to service the community and be profitable businesses, that they also contribute to the welfare of the neighborhoods. And I believe this is a model that can be followed by the other companies. Adelphia has been very good at working with my office. If I haven't already plugged the program called Resurrection Boulevard, I will tell you that there are very few shows on cable right now that accurately or even in any sense try to portray the Latino community in such quality that Resurrection Boulevard does. And Adelphia has committed to work with my office to do as much outreach for that program. I look forward to beginning that process now. Before there was some hesitation because the transfer was still part of the bureaucratic process here. But now that everyone is moving in the same direction, I look forward to working closely with Adelphia and their efforts to reach out to the Latino community.
Thank you. Mr. Hernandez.
Madam Chair, members of council, I frankly rise to commend Buena Vision for their work up to this date in regards to its servicing the Latino community. And I think that they should be showcased because, quite frankly, all the other cable companies have not given the same kind of promotional opportunities, the same kind of programming opportunities in terms of the number of channels dedicated to the Spanish language community and bilingual community. And I know that Adelphia will be the new franchisee because Buena Vision, quite frankly, wasn't given a large enough service area for it to be profitable. But for years, they've been struggling and at the same time serving the community in what I would call a superior way. Because I used to chair what was then the Administrative Services Committee when we held cable hearings. There wasn't complaints about Buena Vision, but we did have complaints about some of the other cable companies. But at the same time, when Mr. Pacheco was commending Resurrection Boulevard and Showtime, I don't have cable. I have a satellite dish, and bottom line is I get the same programming. It's the commitment that the corporations show to basically unifying our city and exposing our communities that I think is very important. And I just wanted to commend Buena Vision, and I know Montezuma Esparza is here in the audience, for the work they've done. And I wish you were taking over Adelphia, but that's not the case today. So again, I will also be supporting Mr. Padilla's work, and again, wanted to commend Buena Visión for the work they've done, particularly in the Latino community, because as people like to see us as a minority in the city called Los Angeles, I think we are quietly becoming definitely the majority.
Doesn't seem so quiet to me.
Well, when you look at cable franchises, it looks
Oh,
like
yeah,
it's very
no, that's
quiet.
certainly true. You're absolutely right. If you look at the cable franchises, that's absolutely true. All right. There being nobody else who wishes to be heard, and we're still one short of enough to pass this on the first try. Mr. Padilla? Mr. Padilla. We have two options. We can take a vote now, which would, since we don't have 12, would kick it over another week, or we can wait till Mr. Wax arrives.
Madam Chair, what I'd like to do is hold down the desk until
All right,
Wax
let's just
arrives.
hold it on the desk, and we'll try to get this taken care of today. All right, thank you. That brings us to the next item.
Item number 34, called special by Councilmember Wax.
All right.
Or, excuse me, Councilmember Walters.
Yes, it was Councilmember Walters. Wax isn't here. And Mr. Hernandez moved I lost him. Yeah, which committee report? You made a motion on 34?
Madam Chair, I was moving the ad hoc committee on children, youth, and their families. My understanding is that Ms. Walters had a motion.
Well, Ms. Walters called it special, so I'm going to
So
call
I'd
her. I
like
just
to-
wanted to make sure what we had on the table here. We also have one person who wishes to be heard. Ms. Walters, you're up first.
Thank you very much. Madam Chair, I'd like to rescind my original motion on this and substitute for it a new motion for item 34. And that new motion should be distributed in just a few minutes. And I think the one rescinding the motion has already been distributed. The new motion will instruct the LA for Kids Steering Committee to basically divide these funds one-third equally among the 15 council districts, and two-thirds of the per capita funds allocated to sensible census tracts eligible for the Healthy Alternatives to Smoking Fund, and that it be determined by percent of square miles in these various districts. And it's all stated out clearly in a motion that's several pages. I hope it's being distributed now. It is not being distributed.
All right, let's hold this on the desk too then, so that we
Fine.
have the motion in front of us
Fine.
when we're doing it. All right, so we're going to hold 34 on the desk. So we're now holding 48 and 34, and we come
And 40
next.
42, there's a member of the public who wishes to be heard.
Why do I have item 40 marked here?
40, we're holding on the desk for Councilmember Wax.
Oh, all right, that's why. All right, item 42. He's allegedly somewhere on a freeway, which could very well be the case. All right, on item, sorry, we're holding 34 on the desk. Item 42, Melrose Larry Green.
Holding up one of the many newspapers that I read every morning. This is the New York Times in my left hand. Has nothing to do with item 42. I'm very active as a Brandeis alumni.
Gentlemen.
Yes,
let's
yes,
move
Brandeis
along.
Express, yes. Brandeis University, I want to say hi to all my friends from Brandeis, where I went to college. Item 42 relates to special events to be held in the various council districts, and I'm very interested in item A and F. Highland Park Car and Truck Show on June 24th, 2001. Well, I'll be there. I've got a 55 T-Bird, and I'll be there. And I'm very glad to see that there's a big activity going on in Highland Park. Lots of great car collectors in Highland Park. But most importantly is item A, celebration of Earth Day 2001, hosted by the Canada Goose Project. You know, I'm a big fan of the Canada Goose. I never met a Canada Goose I didn't like, so I just wanted to throw my support behind all of 42, especially the Canada Goose. In fact, I saw a lot of Canada geese this morning on the way over here. I ran down here in the rain. Thank you. I, by the way, am Melrose Larry Green. Here's my New York Times. I'll watch the replay. I'm one of those people that, is a glutton for punishment, Councilor.
Well, that's what makes it worthwhile putting it on television.
What do you call mayor? Are you mayor pro, city council president pro tem?
I'm President Pro Tem, yes.
Presidentes pro tem. Okay,
Yes,
thank you.
that's it.
I'll see
Thank
you on the replay. Thank
All
you.
right, thank you. That closes the public hearing. And item 42 is now before us. Open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
12 eyes.
All right, item 42 is approved. Next,
Item number 46, I
Item
believe a member of the
46,
public
all
also
right.
wishes to be heard.
we have a lot of cards on this. Mr. Savornich, since it's my motion and I would like to speak. Oh, let's try to clean up a couple of these other ones before we start 46.
Good.
Is she here?
Good.
Is she coming back? Oh, all right. Oh, okay. For which item? 46 she left for, yes. Can you ask her to come back so we can clean up the ones we're holding on the desk? Then we'll do 46.
But you'll learn one of these days. You'll learn to like. I like you. Oh, me.
The one we held for Mr. Blue. Okay. All right. Now, we were holding on the desk item 48. We've had the council debate and council hearing. We've had the public hearing. Open the roll on item 48. Close the roll. Tabulate the vote.
13 eyes.
Okay, that is approved. Forthwith on that, please. And we had one other one we were holding on the desk, item 40. We were holding for Mr. Wax.
Item number 34, we're holding on the desk for the substitute motion to be distributed.
Yes, that we're still holding, but
And item number 40 for Mr. Wax.
Okay, Mr. Wax, are you ready to go on item 40?
Yes, Madam President, appreciate you holding this. Before I speak on the issue, I really wanted to raise a point of order on the need to actually have to suspend the rules to bring item 40 in. And the reason I raise that, as you know, we all received a memo from the council president dated January 24th, 2001. And I just read you the pertinent part here. After the ERC has adopted its rating and determined the adjustment, upon the request of any council member, which I am one, the city clerk will place on the council agenda the review of the rating and merit adjustment. And so I think that by law, since this applies under the old charter for something that's retroactive to 1998, really should just simply, to honor that, doesn't really have to require a 10-vote item to bring it in, and that's what I would first like
All
to
right.
raise.
Okay, now that you have raised that, I see a city attorney lurking at the sidelines here. Mr. Echeverria.
And I would certainly hope the city attorney would not try to make it difficult for us to discuss this in open public session. Thank you.
Yes, Pete Echeverria from the City Attorney's Office. No, not at all. This hasn't been the first time that I've been accused of lurking, however. No, we would not
Hold
try
on
to-
one second. Can we have a little quiet back here? It's getting hard to hear. Okay, go
No,
ahead.
obviously, we would not, do not try to make it difficult for the council to have a public discussion. It is, however, a fact that under the new charter, the council does not play a role in the evaluation of managers, of general managers.
Yeah, but Pete, this is under the old charter, and it goes back retroactive to 1998, and it was following and it was recommended by it was the EERC that voted on it under the procedures set up by the old charter and made it retroactive, and it's the retroactive one done by the EERC under the procedures of the old charter that I'm asking now to be heard.
Yeah, and the problem is that even with the EERC having acted, is that the EERC also has no authority to make the actual award of the raises themselves.
Except that the city
There-
attorney sat in with the EERC and permitted that and said that that was the procedure to be followed, and it was put in writing that under that procedure, we could ask it be heard. And what I'm really raising this for, Madam Chair, is to ask it to go back to the EERC, because I don't think it's justified. But clearly, for this, Pete, we are operating under the old charter in terms of it was for a time before the new charter. It was acted on by the EERC under the provisions of the old charter. The city attorney was in that meeting and did not say anything about that or object to that, and it was and the instructions were given to us as council members that we have a right to request it. I sent the letter to the city clerk asking, and all of this has in fact taken place
under the procedures set up under the old charter for a period of time in which the old charter governed. So to change now suddenly at the tail end the ability to review it unilaterally and say now it requires the new charter is simply doesn't hold up. And I think you'll see yourself having a taxpayer's lawsuit, which you don't really want to have.
Actually, when the charter implementation was underway, we advised that the council's role, including ERCs in the process for evaluating GMs, was no longer the same, notwithstanding the fact that the substantive provisions, that is, those which included the planning groups and the goals that had been set for GMs under the prior system still applied. The ultimate decision maker now was either the mayor or the boards who appoint the various GMs. So we did give that advice before. The information that I have, although I was not there, is that our office was not present at the time that these considerations took place. And we did not give advice that that was the process.
What I heard, but so anyway, I mean, I would like, I do think it's appropriate. These are important public business, and I just think that we ought to have a discussion on the merits, which I'm prepared to. I wanted to first, though, raise the procedural issue to see what you want to rule on that, and then I'd like to speak on the substance.
I'm informed by the clerk that technically it requires 10 votes for us to consider this. We seem already to be considering it, but just to be clean about this, let's just first open the roll on consideration. Close the roll, tabulate the vote. Okay.
13 ayes.
All right. We are now considering it. Mr. Deaton, don't go away. Mr.
right.
Wax had
Yeah.
been,
I
had
would like
raised
to speak on the
specifically,
substance.
no, I know, had raised specifically I believe you mentioned earlier that you raised this in part because you wanted to refer it back to EERC.
But I want to tell you why I want to, because I think that
Okay.
the recommendations are inappropriate.
Well, before you do that, just before I start your time, Mr. Deaton, you're wandering back and forth. Did you want to say something or not? All right. Okay.
And if
Mr.
that's
Wax,
not
could you push
if that's not the appropriate procedure, I would recommend that these be denied.
Okay, well, let's.
Some of them.
No, first we're going to call, all right, and if you want to say something first, go ahead. Then I'm going to call Mr. Wax on the substance.
Okay.
And then Mr. Holden also wants to be heard. And Joel, could you push the button so I have the, thank you.
Just so the council understands, I think what the city attorney is basically saying is that as it relates to these pay increases and future pay increases, the council and the ERC has no role. And there can be public comment about the mayor's recommendation, obviously, but the council nor EERC has any right to change those recommendations under the new charter.
Mr. Deaton, did you prepare this memo that came out under Mr. Ferraro's signature saying the opposite?
No, I didn't.
Who did?
I don't know. And by the way, Mr. Wax,
I mean, here it is.
I understand that. And in fact, right after the passage of the charter, as Mr. Echeverry will tell you, I took the position that that wasn't the case, and that because the salaries related to a year prior to the enactment of the charter, that in fact the same procedures should be in place. I lost that debate with the city attorney.
I'm just curious who did put this out.
We wrote, the Office of Administrative Research Services wrote that memo for the president's signature.
Yes, okay, thank you. I just thought I was reading the right thing here, so thank you. I raised this for a very important reason, Madam President. I think merit pay is supposed to be just that. Merit pay is supposed to be when your performance merits something over and above what you're already getting. The merit pay increases for all 4 general managers here were the highest. They were given appraisal ratings 1. Appraisal rating 1 is when you significantly exceed all the goals and all the expectations and all the performance standards of your job. I think that, for example, with respect to Chief Parks, to say that a department that is racked with troubles, that has the lowest morale probably in the 30 years I've been here, where officers are leaving at a record rate, where we can't recruit new officers, where the community's faith in the department has diminished, where community-based policing has disintegrated, to say that that's the best that we can do, to say that that exceeds all expectations and goals, makes a mockery of the merit pay plan, and sends a strong message that there is no desire, that there is no recognition of something wrong in that department, and that the chief has to share in the responsibility for what's wrong. He already makes $257,000, far more than any chief in the United States in any department. To give on top of that a $30,000 merit raise, make it retroactive to 1998, is to close your eyes to the obvious that something is terribly wrong in the department. And while the blame can be shared by many people, and certainly not belong to one, the chief cannot in any way separate himself from the problems of the department which he is leading. And I think that if we give this kind of a raise to the chief, it is an incredible slap in the face to the taxpayers of this city. It makes a mockery of the merit pay plan. It creates the kind of cynicism that leads to things like secession. But worse of all, it ignores the fact that there is trouble in River City. There is trouble in that department, and that the chief of police has to own up and bear his share of the responsibility, just as the mayor, the council, the commission, the city attorney, and everyone else does. But to deny that he somehow has a role in this, and to say that he has exceeded all expectations, exceeded all possible standards, to say that this is the best we can do, is a sad day if we do that in this city. I think that all of us have to collectively share responsibility, and the chief has to be at the front and sharing his part. And to give this kind of a merit pay praise, the highest that could possibly given, on top of already the highest salary in the country, and going back to the time when Rampart broke in this city, would be a slap in the face to the people in this city that I don't think we're going to recover from a long time. So I would like to recommend that we go on record as saying we do not believe that this is merited.
Mr. Holden.
I'm stunned again. I heard there was a forum last night for the candidates for mayor. And one of the candidates stood up and badgered the Staples Center and saying how much more they could have done for poor people. And they put all of this money into the Staples Center. Now, you all can almost guess who led the charge in order to provide the balanced vote for the Staples Center. I said, they said what? And the very same person set aside an additional $12 million from CRA to grant to the developers of the Staples Center and said that was a good deal. Now, anybody running for mayor and they should be elected, I want them to stand for something consistently, and I want to be able to support them. But all this flip-flopping causes me a lot of problems and a lot of concerns, as it should the public. Now, there's one guy who's on this list I don't think is entitled to anything, but you do. His name is David Friedman. And David Friedman you permitted him to sell the Mojave Desert Energy Producing Plant, which therefore would be using that energy and transporting it to the United States of California. And the PUC was smart not to allow Edison to sell its 50–60% of it. And you were dumb when you let him do it. Thank God the deal is not yet closed, and hopefully we can cancel it for the good of the city of Los Angeles to keep our energy rates down. And yet you say here today, after knowing all that he should get an increase in pay. I don't think he should, but you know what? It is not my prerogative. It's the prerogative of the mayor and the ERC. And for those you've granted the power to, when you supported the charter reform, stood right there on the steps of City Hall, you, the mayor, and another person, I sat in the back with my hand up and said, what are they talking about? And I'm saying today, what are you talking about? You supported that, you're flipping over here and flipping over there. Hey, you never carried a weapon. You never worn a uniform. You never faced a criminal. You never faced disgruntled employees who work for you, who you are supporting, not saying, give me a 312 program. If you don't give me a 312 program, I'm disgruntled. You got to do some things other than for politics. You got to do some things because it's good for the city and what's appropriate for the city. to be mindful of the fact that it could be fatigue. And that's why they don't have the program in place today. I would say to you that you're going to tell me you've served under a lot of police chiefs going way back 30 years ago, and you standing up here telling me Parks is the worst. I got a problem with that, and the problem in my neighborhood have a problem. People in my neighborhood got a problem with that, and that's going to resonate throughout this area.
Thank you, Mr. Holden.
Bad cops he has gotten rid of, good cops he's taken care of, and there's no reason in the world why we should have any disgruntled one standing up there saying, if you don't give me what I want, I'll quit.
All right, thank you, Mr. Holden. It's now Mr. Pacheco's turn.
Thank you, Madam
You're
President.
welcome, Mr. Pacheco. Mr. Pacheco?
I had simple questions, Madam President, colleagues. If I understand correctly, the charter gives this authority to the mayor to give merit pays.
The mayor and the boards that appoint the GMs in those cases where there are boards.
Right, with
appointing
them. Okay. Well, that's the question. Joel, can I ask that question? Jeez. What authority is granted either under the charter or ordinance to do something retroactive? Most people watching us who have a job, go work at any employment, whether you talk about McDonald's or you talk about Lockheed, and I'm talking about just flipping burgers, or being an engineer at Lockheed, when they get a pay raise, they normally think it starts next month or the next paycheck. What authority why are we doing something that most people don't get, which is retroactive? Where do we get there? How do we get to this point where retroactive pay or, increases are being done? I mean,
Under the merit pay plan, which existed prior to last July 1st, there was...
And that's by ordinance?
By ordinance, and also by the authority of the charter.
What? Okay.
Up to July 1st.
Okay, so can I change that in the merit pay plan by ordinance? Can I change that when the mayor utilizes this authority, it can only be proactive? Can I change that? Because obviously I could be wrong here, but I can't believe the charter actually goes into this detail in terms of retroactive versus...
No, the key change that occurred as of July 1 is that the authority to grant those kinds of increases, pay adjustments, including reductions, was removed from the council and was given to the mayor and the boards.
Right, and most people...
That's the key change. So as of July 1st, that authority just does not exist any longer in the council, retroactive or otherwise, does not exist in the council.
Okay, let me ask you this then. The way you interpret the charter right now, that authority, because there's no limitation on it in the charter, includes retroactive?
Yes, the retroactive aspects did not change because that is an employee management relationship. There was always an expectation that the GMs would receive some raises for 98, 99. The fact that the process was, for whatever reason, delayed this long shouldn't prejudice and does not legally prejudice those GMs. They're entitled to be considered and evaluated. They're not entitled to raises, but they're entitled to be considered and evaluated for that period in any event.
Let me ask you this then. Okay. Please sit down in my office to undo this retroactive ability. If it requires a charter change or requires ordinance change, just educate my office on what I need to do, because we should be treated, all of our employees should be treated like the average Joe is treated, or Josefina, in terms of how they get their pay raises and what they usually expect. I mean, I think we should have some consistency here with our constituents and the taxpayers. When they get pay raises, they usually think it's going to happen next month. If we want to institute some Christmas bonus type of program, then we should call it that. But this sounds like a bonus. It doesn't sound like a pay raise or a merit pay increase.
Thank you. Mr. Hernandez.
Okay, let me try and understand this, because Mr. Wax, you confused me a little bit, so I want to try and understand it. And I've participated in the evaluation of department heads under my jurisdiction, for example, CDD, the Convention Center, and so forth. Normally what happens is, Mr. Chivity, I'm going to need your help on this. What period were these managers being evaluated from?
My understanding was that it was 98, 99.
98 and 99. And today is 2001. Seems like a government efficiency issue in terms of evaluating department heads that should be looked at. So the goals that were set were for 98 and for 99, and the evaluation process was to whether the goals were met in 98 and 99. Is that correct?
Correct.
And basically, because that process was finally completed, now the recommendation came to us to vote on. And it just so happens to be February 2001. Now, I'm not sure Mr. Wax would have been giving the same speech in 98 and 99 about the performance of the department heads. I'm just trying to explain that because I remember some of the speeches in 98 and 99. And it's important that we understand that what we're looking at today, 2 years later, might be a different picture from our perspectives. We might feel differently. But I think that as a department head who was working in 98 and 99, trying to reach performance and deal with the goals that were set for them, that's what's before us. I'm just trying to explain that because I think that's the flaw in our system, in our evaluation system. I've had instances where the goals had to be set after the year was surpassed, and that's ridiculous. And so I'm not sure I should hold a department head accountable to that. And I think that we should be reviewing that process as a city, and we should be honest about it. Because that's where there seems to be a real flaw, is we're making these evaluations after the fact. But when we set the goals, they were set, and then the review was based on those goals, and then we were talking about performance ratings based on those goals and compliance with those goals, and then we were talking about whether they deserve the merit pay. I'm just trying to explain that because today, because of the issues that are before us, and don't get me wrong, we have a campaign going on, folks. People trying to be the next mayor, people trying to be other office holders, and we're looking at issues completely different. But it's what was happening in 98 and 99 that I think was being evaluated, and that's what's before us. Now, I also think at some point we're going to have to evaluate performance for the year 2000 and 2001. And how fast we get to that, I think is important. So I just want to make those comments in terms of our process, because I think that's where we have a real deficiency.
All right, let me just remind you all, we have several more people who want to be heard, and you will be, that the item before us is, so far, is simply an open discussion concerning the review of the EERC's recommendations. We don't, I believe, actually have any recommendations before us.
That's correct.
Is that correct?
Unless a motion is made and you have no
All right,
recommendations.
hang on. We have a long way to go yet. Mr. Burnson is next.
Well, first of all, I'd like to see if I understand this fully. This is the mayor's decision, and the council has no bearing whatsoever in it?
That's correct.
So it doesn't matter. What we're doing is simply discussing the process now?
Yes.
So is there going to be a vote on this, or what? And if there is a vote, what does it mean?
Only if there's a motion, and it depends on what the motion says, but basically...
But even if the council
it
were
could only be
to...
advisory.
Even if the council were to make a motion and say, don't do this, we disapprove of this, it would be meaningless. Is that correct?
It could be disregarded, yes.
Okay.
Well, it depends on how much attention the mayor pays to it. But
I'm sure he's just waiting to hear from us,
I'm sure
Ruth,
he
you know.
is.
But anyway, let me just say this. I think that there's been a lot of conversation about this thing in the press. Obviously, it's open season for all those mayoral candidates, Mr. Wax, you and others, not just you alone. And to your credit, I'll say that you have been very strong on fiscal issues all along, so I won't. But, you know, one of the reasons that I thought the charter, and I opposed the charter, was because the charter changes everything, every concept that we had in this city. What we have done is given almost complete political control to one person. And the chickens will come home to roost, as I said they would before. Okay? Now, in defense of of one individual, and Nate, I seldom disagree with Nate, my wise, esteemed colleague, but I think if there's one individual that does deserve a increase, it is David Friedman. I must say that I think David has given us exemplary leadership, and that's why we are not looking at the same type of situation. Of course, some of us who went to Utah and went to Phoenix and went to Page, Arizona, and got us involved in those projects to bring power here, maybe we ought to take a little bow too. But I don't think there's many of us that were here then. No, he wasn't, but some of us were. But, Nate, you're running for Congress. Be quiet, okay?
Nate, you have to let him speak on
Be
his
quiet.
time.
I'm not Charlie McCarthy. There's no strings.
Come on, Hal, let's
ventriloquist.
keep going here.
I'm just speaking up on what I think is appropriate as far as Dave Friedman. The others, I don't even want to comment on. This is not our call anymore, unfortunately. And before we do anything, we ought to change the charter back to what we think it ought to be, and that's probably something that some of us ought to do before we leave.
Well, we don't get to change the charter, we only get to propose it. That's right. Members of the council, I am advised, I have 4 more people currently who want to be heard. I am advised by the city attorney that we must have a public hearing on this item, and I have 1 person who has asked to speak. So with your permission, we're now going to have the public hearing and call, guess who? Melrose Larry Green.
Oh, boy, am I glad that they accepted this card, because I read a great story in the Daily News by a guy named Rick Orloff, who wrote all about the salaries of the general managers. And do you know that the 37 general managers in L.A., under the raise, proposed this raise and other raises, the total payroll will be about $6.25 million. And I'll go one step further than Councilman Wax. I'd like to know how many of these general managers, including Chief Parks, live in the city of L.A. It's not required. You have to live in the city of L.A. Department heads don't have to live in the city of L.A. To me, that's a disgrace. And I totally agree that the idea of making a raise retroactive to 1999, I guess Ron Deaton is jealous he's no longer the Shaquille O'Neal. He'd be the highest paid person, he'd be Kobe Bryant. I guess Shaquille would be Chief Parks. I echo you, and Councilman Wax, I was out there last night, and I want to tell you, it does rain in Southern California. And last night I was standing outside Wilshire Boulevard.
Mr. Green.
No campaigning. I totally am so grateful. And I like the way you sneak this thing through number 40, like it was a parade or something for the banners. Get very little details on this. This is the most important thing on the whole agenda, number 40. You can't sneak anything by Joel Wax and Melrose Larry Green. Now,
Very good. Now, that's a very good closing line.
All right, so please, you can't endorse this. Chief Parks, you don't deserve $257,000. Go play for the Lakers for that kind of money.
Green.
Go play for the Lakers for that kind of money.
There's a thought. That closes the public hearing. Stay with us, guys. We're not done yet. Mr. Ridley Thomas is next.
My, Madam President. We ought to give Larry Melrose or Mary Melrose Green a big round of applause, and perhaps he will. And look at him, he gives it to himself. My goodness. I think the city attorney has spoken to this in such a way that it makes it clear what our options are and what they are not. I also rise to take note of the fact if there is someone that we wish to criticize, we can do so. I take this opportunity to say that the business of public safety is important to us all. And if, in fact, anyone wishes to be direct and or pointed about the public safety agenda of the City of Los Angeles for the last 7.5 years, there is but one person to whom our attention can be appropriately directed. The person who ran on a platform based, in fact, on a public safety agenda that said, we will expand, not improve, we will be bigger, not better. If my memory serves me correctly, the only competing issue of popular note was that of neighborhood councils at the time. There was another candidate in 1993 who ran on that. So I think you can take it out on a city employee who is obliged to follow the directives of a mayor who has demonstrated himself to be muscle-bound in some respects, in part because of the deference shown him by this body. But in the final analysis, Madam President, members of the council, the public safety agenda in its current state is fundamentally part and parcel of the priorities and administration of Richard J. Riordan. We do not have a reform agenda in this city now because this mayor has done all that he could to prevent it from happening, and in more instances than many of the persons around this horseshoe would like to admit, we have been complicit. If, in fact, personnel, troops are dispirited in LAPD, it's the result of, in some part, of a chief of police who has been accused of being too much of a disciplinarian. So it doesn't seem to me that we can have it both ways. And I don't think morale is the only indication of the health of the department. Is obviously one. So then, I invite you, Mr. Wax, aim your weapon properly. Focus it on the person who's responsible, the chief executive of the city.
Thank you.
And not simply the
Thank you,
chief
Mr. Ridley
of
Thomas.
police of the police department.
All right. It is now Mr. Wax's turn, so there you go.
I don't disagree with you, Mr. Ridley Thomas, on that, but the issue before us is a raise for the chief, not a raise for the mayor, and so that...
It's to the chief. The mayor gave it to him, so blame the mayor.
Okay. The reason and let me go to that, Mark, the reason I challenge the city attorney's ruling that this is under the new charter is because the mayor didn't give this one, Mark. In fact, this was given by the EERC.
The meeting.
Mr. Ridley Thomas,
But
Mr.
there's
Ridley
a five-member...
Thomas, let him have his time.
Okay. There's a five-member of the ERC, of which the mayor is one. Okay.
Who's the head of the ERC?
Let me restate my two
Who's the
positions
head
here.
of the ERC?
Mr. Ridley Thomas, let him have his time. He didn't interrupt you.
Well, he's more restrained than I am today.
Yes, he is. Could you see if you can emulate him?
Hey, Mark.
I don't think so.
It'll be a challenge for you.
All right, 2 points here. First, again, I want to state for the record that I challenge the ruling of the city attorney. This is done on a procedure set up in the old charter by the EERC, not the mayor alone, by 5 people. It's for a period of time covered by the old charter, retroactive to 98. As Mr. Pacheco says, there's nothing clear in the new charter that the mayor alone has the power to give a retroactive raise. And so the only one that really did have the power for this time for this period of time was the EERC under the old charter, which is what is in fact before us now. So I think that there's going to be a challenge to the city attorney's ruling if this stands, and hopefully a taxpayer's lawsuit that would challenge the ruling of the city attorney that this rightfully should be considered under the old charter. That said, even under the new charter, it is before us now, and I think it's incumbent upon us to recommend to the mayor that these retroactive raises not be given, period. We have a duty to recognize the problems in the department. Mr. Ridley Thomas is correct that the blame is to be shared by a number of people, but it certainly cannot ignore the fact that the chief of police is the chief of police, and that he or she, whoever holds that position, has to be held accountable and responsible for the performance of the department under their guidance. And nobody in the world can tell me or anyone else in this city that everything is perfect in the police department. Nobody can say that the performance of the head person in the department exceeds all the expectations and all of the goals that we have set for that department, because that would be saying that we can't do any better. This is the best we can do, and you know we can do better, and we know we have to do better, and you don't do better by denying the fact that there's a problem, and you don't do better by rewarding someone for not doing it well. Yes, you're right, Mark. The responsibility is a shared one. But what is before us now is a $30,000 retroactive pay raise for the chief, and I say it's inappropriate. So I would move that we recommend to the mayor that he not make a retroactive payment of these four, I'm going to actually make it for the four, of these four general managers at this time. And if someone wants to split the issue, I will, but I don't think it's appropriate, given the level of pay we have in this city, to do any of these, but the chief was the one I have focused on. But I would move that we simply make a recommendation to the mayor, if that, in fact, is the city attorney's position, that we not do that. I would also put for the record that I challenge the city attorney's position on this in the first place. But I think we've got to go on record to say all's not right. And it certainly doesn't merit this kind of an increase in pay.
Thank
So
you.
that's my motion.
Thank you.
If
Now-
I may clarify the motion.
Yes, just 1 second. I would like you to clarify the motion, and I would also like to tell you that there are 3 more people so far to be heard. All right, you clarify the motion
If
first.
it's to be consistent with our advice, it would be recommend to the mayor and to the respective appointing boards for the GMs. For example, the chief of police would be the Board of Police Commissioners.
Okay. All right, so Mr. Wax's motion is that the council recommend to, now, my question to you, just procedurally, just so we're all doing this clean, is the agenda item is listed as an open public session to review the EERC recommendations. I believe, subject to the disagreement between the city attorney and Mr. Wax over what we can and can't do, that would make it appropriate on this agenda
Yes.
for Mr. Wax's
Yes.
motion. Okay. Next, Mr. Savornich.
Madam President, has anyone moved to bifurcate?
Not yet, but,
I would like to do so.
all right, so now just what are you bifurcating? You're separating the chief of police from the other 3?
I'd like to do all of them separately.
Each of them separately. All right, Mr. Savornich has moved, and Mr. Wax accepts as a friendly amendment that we review each of them separately. Okay, Mr. Holden is next.
Well, even though you're going to do that, and some I like and some I don't like, you just can't have cookies when you want them. I'm going to have to vote for all of them because that's the process. And in doing so, I'm voting for the process. But I will say once again that since I've been through 4 police chiefs, 3 police chiefs, and I've gotten less complaints about the so-called racial profiling or being stopped without cause under this chief than under any other chiefs that's served in that position. The people that I represent tend to be a lot happier with the level of service that's being provided by that department, and it's come from the top down. Sure, there's some problems, but we can't control attitudes of every individual, as you can't even do it on your own staff. Some people do good, some people, they do things that's outside of the law. And they have to be held accountable for that. And that's the way it is. But Mr. Bernstein disagreed with me on one of the candidates who's going to be getting some money. And I want to set the record straight. Where is Mr. Deaton? It was Mr. Deaton is the one, if anybody at all, should get credit for us not being included in Senate Bill 1890, the deregulation bill. Mr. Freeman, Mr. Deaton, are you listening to me? Mr. Freeman wasn't even an employee at the time. But if you listen to Flashman Hiller's report of him, the way they publicized that, they will tell you that he was the godfather for the city of Los Angeles. That's why our lights are on and the others are off. He wasn't even here. It was Deaton with a motion of, what's the man? It was a Deaton with a motion of Ferrara, Galanta, that came to my committee, and the chairman of the Intergovernmental Relations Committee, and I was asked whether or not I would waive the hearing for the purpose of requiring that we be deleted from 1890, or we would be having the same problems that they have. That was done. We prevail, and now our lights are on. And yet, Freeman is going around getting credit for it. And you say that's good. I think that's deceptive. And you still will not accept the fact that he sold Mojave Desert, our portion of it, sat right there and told you it was a good deal. The PUC says it's a bad deal, and you still say the guy's a good guy. Wait until it's written, then you'll know what I'm talking about. In 1999, December, your friend wrote a letter to Senator Peace, and he asked Senator Peace, told him, we're going to get us in the ISO, which is part of the deregulation program. I will bring DWP into the ISO. If you want to see a copy of the letter, I will.
Mr. Holden?
And I got to tell you, you think that's right? These people in this city will jump up and down and shout all over you if he ever were successful in bringing us into the ISO and also the deregulation program.
Okay.
And that's in writing with his
All right,
signature.
thank you, Mr. Holden. Mr. Fewer for the first time.
Thank you, Madam President. First, I want to understand, sort of as a point of order, what the competing matters are before us. We have Mr. Wax's motion. Is it before us, by the way, or not? Has it been seconded?
I have not received a second as of yet.
Okay, but if that motion were seconded away, Mr. Wax's motion, which Mr. Zavornich would ask be separated, were there to be a second?
Which Mr. Wax agreed would be separate.
Okay, so then, is there another matter before us? There was a discussion earlier about whether it goes back to the ERC. Is there a motion for that? Is there an action pending or
There
not?
has not been, to the best of my knowledge, there has not been a motion to send it back to EERC.
Okay.
Mr. Wax mentioned, let me stop your time.
I would make that motion if it was under that procedure, but he's saying since it's not under the new one, then the only motion is to recommend to the mayor not
Yeah,
to.
the reason I want to just understand a little bit about this is I thought the city attorney was saying that the ERC did not, in the first instance, have jurisdiction to take an action.
That's correct.
And wasted its time. And as a consequence, to send it back there doesn't do anything because it can't do anything. It couldn't do it before and it couldn't do it now. Correct?
Correct.
The next question I'm just trying to sort things out at this juncture. The next thing I want to ask is this. I think that a very important public conversation about the state of the department, police department, water and power, libraries, whatever, might be a good thing. There are lots of benefits to having a vigorous debate about the state of those departments. What I want to understand is when I was asked to comment by the press on what took place at the EERC, I did some preliminary checking with the city attorney's office because I didn't want to subject the city to a lawsuit for violating the privacy of those people. I want to be clear, a discussion about where these departments are is a good discussion to have. My question, Mr. Echeverria, is a public discussion about the merits of a personnel matter cool? Is it appropriate? If so, let's do it. It's not what I was told. I'm not an expert. I need to understand what the rules are.
Right. An evaluation of a personnel evaluation is appropriate for a closed session and generally is done in a closed session, although the subject of the
If it were done,
evaluation.
can it be done in an open session?
It's possible to do it in an open session if the subject of the evaluation agrees to it.
See, here's what I'm trying to figure out here. We have had part of a conversation, it seems to me, here. Those who are, and it's mostly been focused on Chief Parks, to some extent Mr. Freeman. There's been a kind of a tiptoeing into the edges of the water when it comes to a complete evaluation, pro and con for those guys. If we're going to have it, let's have it, as opposed to part of it, because I think it makes no sense for us to vote on incomplete information. And I'm happy to have it if it's legal. I think it's a good, healthy thing to have it if it's legal, but I want to be sure that if we do it, we don't do it in a way that subjects the city to liability. I don't want to be heard to advocate a closed session meeting. I want to understand what the rules are. If the principals in this situation waive their rights, we can do it. I hear you saying that. What if they don't?
Then you have a closed session, or in the alternative, you can have, as you're having now, an open discussion about what the council and its members know about the operation of the departments. You can always express opinions regarding that.
Yeah, we can talk about the operation of the department. See, what we're having is a piece of a conversation.
All right.
And I would advocate, Madam Chair, that if we're going to do an evaluation publicly, that we do it, but not that we do it little bits here, little bits there. I'm not sure where I'm going to come out on some of that public discussion, but let's have it or not.
Okay, thank you. Let me just, I have two more people to be heard so far. It is, I think, customary for EERC recommendations to be voted on by the full council. Is that correct?
Under the old plan,
Under the
yes,
old
correct.
rules, the EERC
Under the old plan.
recommended, under the old charter, the EERC would recommend whatever it recommended, and the full
that-
council would either concur with the EERC report or do
Or send
something
it back to
different.
them, or if it did not concur, could send it
Actually,
back.
on general manager merit pay, the ERC would take an action, notify the council, any individual council member would have 10 days, as I recall, to introduce a motion challenging the action. Other than that, it was deemed approved.
And if it was,
Okay.
if it was not approved, though, it would be sent back to the EERC.
That's true. And I think the situation has developed where the EERC this time was not advised that it was out of the loop, took some actions, and I think that's the confusion, and the confusion still reigns.
I was there. It is the case that we were not told we were told in the meeting that on all evaluations and possible merit increases subsequent to the changing of the charter, we would have no role. We were not told that we had no role in that. In fact, it was a rather vigorous discussion. I now have 4 council members who wish to be heard. And if we clarify for another minute or two, we'll probably pick up a few more. Did you look like you're on the verge of saying something.
If and when you were going to evaluate, and based on that evaluation, make recommendations to the mayor relative to merit pay, then I think we need, with the city attorney, et cetera, to work out a process to do that. I think we have come here under a certain set of circumstances that are unfortunate because we're in this transition between two charters and the confusion.
What I do think we need I am going to call on all 4 of these people in 1 second, but while I'm doing that and while they're talking, I think it would be useful, particularly for you, Mr. Echeverria, if you would think about whether if we are going to have a more specific discussion along the lines Mr. Fewer was asking about, whether we need to have any additional public notice beyond what appears on today's agenda, and whether we need any kind of communication from the individuals whose evaluation we would be discussing in public. And if so, then we would need to, if we want to have those discussions, we would probably need to defer them. If not, if this is adequate notice, and the fact that the EERC took an action, however meaningful or meaningless, is adequate, then we'll go through the rest of this.
I might say, just to put it in perspective, the action of the EERC, to the extent that it had meaning, was as a recommendation to the mayor and the various commissions as to what should be done, and that's all. And I assume that it could be construed as though it was taken at the request of the mayor for input, for that kind of advisory role.
However, at least one council member, and it appears
Right.
at least 2 council members would disagree with that interpretation. So we may have to go a little, I mean, the real issue is, whatever the status of the EERC meeting, what I'm concerned about is what we're doing here in public. I mean, we want to have in public whatever discussions it is legal and legitimate to have in public.
Yeah, and at this point, it's only, what's before you is the actions that the EERC took and your recommendations with respect to that. That's all,
Okay.
the expression of the council's views
All
with
right,
respect to
and we
that.
still only have 4 who want to be heard. Ms. Mizikowski for the first time.
Thank you, Madam President. This has been an interesting discussion. I think we've all learned that we used to be able to do and that we're now not able to do under the city attorney's ruling, and that this was the transition period. But I think, as Mr. Fewer indicated, were we to seriously look at making a recommendation to the mayor, and that's all that it could be, we really ought to look at the performance ratings and the other recommendations. When we have done that, and I think each of the members of the council under the old charter did sit in the performance rating process and the goal-setting process. And one of the first things we did was sign a sheet of paper saying we agreed to the confidentiality of everything that was there and what was under discussion. And when we have in the past received the EERC recommendations on merit pay ratings and challenged them, we have done it in executive session with the employee in question able to come forward, be aware of that, and then we all are under that same guise of confidentiality as it relates to performance ratings. I think given all of that, given that what we would be talking about right now has no substance. It has no substance under the charter. It has no, we, under the new charter, changed that system for better or for worse. And so given that, my recommendation today, although we've learned what those processes are, what the limitations, that at this point, I'm going to recommend receiving and filing item number 40.
Is that a motion?
It was a motion, second.
Okay. All right, we have now two motions on the table.
I don't think the other one was second.
Did I hear a second on that one?
Yes.
Oh, all right, I'm just making sure that we're really on the table here. All right, Mr. Ridley Thomas is next, just so you all know, followed by Mr. Fewer and Mr. Wax. Go ahead.
Madam President, members of the council, I think the motion to receive and file is completely appropriate at this point. I also wish to say that with respect to the amount that has been asserted by Mr. Wax, that it's a $30,000 increase over and over again, checking with ORS, that isn't accurate, and it seems to me that accuracy is fundamentally important. And so while we rush to make a point, it seems to me we have an obligation to be accurate in informing the public as to what is or is not the case so as not to mislead the public. The other point that I want to make is that there is no question about the fact that every single general manager ought to be held accountable. I don't know that there's anyone that ought to be afforded an exception in that regard. But it is also the case that public officials are to be held accountable. And I return to the point that I made earlier. The general managers have been caused to be, by way of this new charter that some chose to support on the council, and I trust that there is an increasing sense of its demerits, particularly as it relates to the concentration of power at the executive branch of government that now has general managers literally intimidated, and to the point that they don't even wish to publicly acknowledge that they are in consultation with council members and or those offices, and the extent to which that puts more of the onus, the responsibility, the burden on the chief executive of the city, who can summarily, as you take note of publicly, dismiss commissioners, destabilize the very department that he wishes to say deserves more attention and leadership. And so there's a lot of reasons for what's going on in the police department. And they start at the top of local government, namely the chief executive, the mayor. And we ought to call it like it is, and those who are office seekers who are unwilling to, are afraid to point in the direction that it ought to be, I gladly provide that service for them. There may be reasons they can't, but some of us who can do otherwise are more than willing, in the spirit of collegiality, to do what others seem not to be able to do, particularly in this instance.
Perfectly
Madam
done,
President.
right on time. Mr. Fewer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I actually want to propose another approach, because I think that there clearly is a lot of sentiment here, and I think more in the public, to do as much as we can do publicly. I felt constrained because of city attorney advice not to discuss this matter in the press to this point, and I don't hear anything different today. But that doesn't mean we shouldn't make an effort to have a public conversation about this. I just reject the idea that this has been an adequate conversation on which to base the conclusion what the salary should be of these people. And here's what I was going to recommend. I'm going to move instead that we seek from the 4 general managers at issue what the city attorney has said is necessary, which is something like a formal waiver of their privacy or confidentiality pursuant to their evaluations. And assuming that we get waivers from one or more of those people, that with full information about the standards and performance for the effective time period which is not now, it was 1998 and 1999, we then have a public discussion. But I reject the idea of doing it now based on the information that's here, which we don't even have before us the standards against which their performance should be measured. How can we perform an evaluation in that setting? How can we make a recommendation to the mayor based on the complete lack of standards against which to judge performance? So my motion is, seek whatever document is necessary, call it a waiver from the relevant people, and then circulate to council members so we can actually talk based on some knowledge, standards and the criteria on which we would base an evaluation, including full information about performance. Otherwise, the motion to receive and file, I think, is we're not ready to do that, and we're certainly not ready to vote here on whether in 1998-99 each of these four people performed their jobs very well, or poorly. So that is my motion, to try to do what we can publicly, but not this. I hope there's a second for that.
All right, Ms. Walters, for the first time.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. I sat here listening to all of this, and I said it's one of those round-robin things that the less said, the better. So I thought I'd sit it out, but we just seem to be going on and on and on. The notion, to me, of singling out these last four general managers who, through no fault of their own, were the tail end of the people to be evaluated under the former criteria, to single them out, seek some kind of permission from them to come allow themselves to be evaluated publicly, I think is offensive. It's offensive to me, and I'm sure it's offensive to them. This is the last of this process. We need to vote for these folks, vote them up or vote them down, and get on with it from here on out.
Mr. Burnson.
What is, Mark, what was your motion? To simply receive and file the letter from the mayor?
It was Cindy's motion.
Cindy's motion. It seems to me that this is probably the most prudent thing. We have no jurisdiction here. All we can do is yell and scream, but in reality, the voters, some of us supported the charter, some of us didn't. Some of us didn't. The voters who had the final word did, and that's what they've done. And now we just have to accept that. So for we can grandstand all we want and say that we shouldn't approve their pay increase. And I've received dozens of calls, in fact, more than that, and letters. But in fact, I have no jurisdiction here. And for me to pretend that I can do anything, Joel, is basically not true, any more than you can do anymore, or any of the people who are running for office can do. It's a given fact. It's done. And whether we approve or whether we don't approve, that's what the new charter says. And I think that the motion to simply receive and file this letter is in order. There's nothing else we can do.
I believe the slogan was make the mayor responsible and hold the mayor accountable, and nobody ever said how. Mr. Wax.
I'm not going to go to the substance because we've had that debate. Mr. Burnson, the reason we put it on was because we got the letter from Mr. Ferraro saying you have 14 days, call Ms. Ginsburg, put it on. We wrote a letter to the clerk pursuant to that, and that's why it's here. I want to go to the issue, though, whether these things should be in public or private, irrespective of who they are, what period they cover. You know, Mr. Echeverria, as you know, I have, and members of council, you certainly know that I have constantly maintained that these things should be in public. I believe that the performance of the evaluation of the performance of a department manager it goes to how well they do their job in delivering services, and that people have a right to have these discussions in public, out in the open, and with input. City attorney always tells me it should be what you say today, Mr. Echeverria. It should be in private unless the manager agrees to have it in public. Well, I don't know which city attorney sometimes I'm talking about, Pete. I'm going to read to you a release from the city attorney of 2 weeks ago, your boss, when he made a great pronouncement on neighborhood councils. Quote, Neighborhood councils must have input in general manager performance reviews. Neighborhood councils must play a meaningful role in evaluating the general managers of city departments. Community members are best positioned to evaluate whether a department has delivered an appropriate level of service in the manner in which those services are delivered. Yet at present, community members have no voice in the evaluation of general managers and their salary levels. To correct this admission, neighborhood councils should provide general manager evaluations to the mayor, and these evaluations in turn should form the basis of their performance review. That's the same city attorney who's now sitting here telling me you got to do it in private unless you get permission to do it in public. That's nonsense. And you can't have it both ways.
Mr. Hernandez.
You want to bet?
All right, it's Mr. Hernandez's turn. Can you guys pipe down? I know it's almost lunchtime. We have a long way to go in this meeting yet. Go ahead.
Madam Chair, I call for the question.
A public servant, if ever there was one. All right, the question has been called. The only person still up here to speak has already spoken twice. So is there any objection to the previous question? In that case, debate has now been cut off. The first vote will be on Ms. Mizikowski's motion to receive and file. Open the roll. This is Mizikowski's motion to receive and file. Thank you, Mr. Holden. Open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
10 ayes, 2 noes.
That seems to have been approved. The item is now received and filed.
So much for political speeches.
Moving right along to the next item, I've been asked if we could take item 50 out of order. We have a number of people from members of the public here who would like to be heard on this. Now, we did hold a hearing on this item in committee this morning. Members of the council, are we still here? There's a lot of noise back here again. So unless there is a need for an additional public hearing, as chair of the committee, I was the only one present at the time, and I have recommended that, can you guys pipe down a little bit? Or take the conversation over there somewhere? As chair of the committee, I have, and after much soul searching, recommended that we proceed with batches 7 and 8 of the Manchester Square acquisition, and instructed the planning department to make sure that before any rezoning is contemplated, that anybody who is interested is adequately notified. So unless I hear a motion for an additional public hearing, item 50 is before us with a recommendation of the chair, and I'd appreciate it if somebody, since I can't do it, if somebody would move approval of the chair's recommendation. Thank you. I'm so glad somebody was paying attention. Mr. Fewer moves. I'm glad to hear it. I'm going to give you a chance to prove it. Open the roll on item 50, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
Those are approved. That is approved. We had a hearing well, nobody took a motion nobody moved for a public hearing. I did raise that, and nobody moved for a public. Yes, they did have an opportunity, Mr. Stevens. They have plenty of opportunity, and believe me, they're not shy. I've never known them to be shy. I would like to make the committee report, including the testimony, a part of the record, as well as the names of the people who spoke this morning, who did stay in order to speak again. So here are those cards, and that takes care of item 50. Forthwith on that, please. And I believe we're back to item 34.
34.
All right, 34, there were a number, we were holding that on the desk because there were some amending motions, and I believe Ms. Walters had brought in the amending motions. Would you hit the button, please, Rita?
They're amending motion number 34A and 34B.
All right, so members of the council, we have two amending motions on item 34, and the matter is open for debate. Ms. Walters, if you would hit the speaker button, please. Oh, we have you on. Go ahead.
Thank you. As I indicated before, I had a motion out here which has been distributed to rescind the original motion on this and to substitute 34A, I believe, is 34A, the one I have in my hand? 34A deals with the RFP.
And this is a summary.
You also have a summary of all three, the motion to rescind, the 34A, and 34B. The 34, and I would ask you, because of the complicated matter of these, that if you have a moment to look at this, it will assist. 34A would allow, and that's the one I am recommending.
34A just simply rescinds from June 30th the RFP issue. 34B is what you are pushing on the percent square miles.
I stand corrected. 34B is what I support. 34A, I'm finally told, is just the motion I asked to be rescinded. And 34B is a motion that will give 1/3 of the city's share of the per capita funds to be allocated equally among the 15 council districts. 34B will also give 2/3 of the city's per capita share allocated to census tracts that fit the criteria of the Healthy Alternatives to Smoking, or the HATS Trust Fund. And this will be determined by the percent of square miles in a council district. So, council members, this is what I'm asking you to do. Rescind 34A and substitute with 34B. Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right, thank you. We do have one member of the public who's asked to be heard, and we have not had a hearing previously on this item. So if you're ready, we will now have the public hearing on item 34 and hear from Stephanie Taylor.
Thank you, Madam. My name is Stephanie Taylor, and I represent Coalition LA, which is organizing residents in Los Angeles to develop solutions to improve our neighborhood. I come before you today because of our concerns regarding Prop 12 and the RFP process. We see Prop 12 as an important source of funding that has the potential to increase park equity in Los Angeles. The intent of the law passed by the legislature and voters was to provide much-needed funding to create urban parks. We're afraid that the money will not ultimately get to the intended neighborhoods that lack park resources. We think this for two reasons. One, the RFP process and the regulations are much too complicated for smaller, less institutionalized nonprofits to effectively compete for these funds. And two, the city currently lacks a comprehensive program to support the creation of these small parks and open spaces. So I'd like to remind the council that Coalition LA currently has an innovative solution that is being studied by the Chief Legislative Analyst's Office called Neighborhood Oasis. It's to create a program that brings together resources of the city as well as the resources from community groups and residents to convert vacant lots into small open spaces. So I understand, back to Prop 12, I understand that the city is currently waiting to approve the RFP process for Prop 12 being recommended by the Commission for Children, Youth, and Their Families. We support the Commission's efforts to reform the RFP process, but I understand that the time is short on this. So I would like to, and I also understand the Council is committed to providing technical workshops on applying for Prop 12. So I urge the Council to take a close look at how you can further assist nonprofits and urge the city to put the necessary resources forward to do outreach and to provide concrete assistance to nonprofits so they can effectively apply and utilize these funds. I want to also go on record to support the efforts of Councilman Hernandez to effectively involve nonprofits and being able to utilize Prop 12 funds. Thank you.
Thank you. That closes the public hearing on item 34, and we have several people who wish to be heard. Mr. Fewer.
Madam President. I wanted to rise in support of Ms. Walters amending motion 34B, and here's why. As the council member who moved the creation of the Healthy Alternatives to Smoking Trust Fund, I did so because Prop K, for all its merits, because it's a citywide assessment, has one deficiency that the rules didn't allow us to address. Under Prop K, you have to divide the funds across the city because it's a citywide assessment, and the Healthy Alternatives to Smoking Trust Fund does just the opposite. It targets scarce dollars to the most underserved areas of the city. And by doing that targeting, it enables kids without access to parks and recreation programs to have some hope that in the near future, city leaders will change that. We just didn't have enough money to devote to that trust fund to do more than enable it to provide a very healthy match to Prop K projects. Ms. Walters' motion would target this new source of funds principally to the areas that need it the most. As I've said in other contexts, dividing by 15 doesn't cut it when we have a disparity when it comes to needs in our city. And so what Ms. Walters' motion does, and I think improves upon everything else that comes before it, is that it assures the most precise targeting possible to the areas with the fewest parks and the greatest poverty. And that's what we should be doing. So, Ms. Walters, I think it's a great motion. I support it. I urge unanimous endorsement of that idea because without it, we're going to be responsible for perpetuating the disparity in our city when it comes to access to these kinds of programs. And if we perpetuate it, then we deserve what we'll get, which is greater increases in youth crime, greater hopelessness, and further deepening of the gap between rich and poor. We can do better. This motion gets us on the right track.
Mr. Holden.
I understand that Ms. Walters with 34B is an appropriate substitute for what's before us. However, I'd like to make mention of the fact that of all the council districts, the 10th district is the one that's most densely populated, Mr. Deaton. And whereas you helped us with our energy crisis, you didn't do very much for us for our parks. And so you give on one hand, you take away from the other. But I'm sure you'll find a way eventually. And it says here that we have the least amount of parkland, and we're the most densely populated. Under the whole track only approach, the 10th district will get a lot more money. For example, it'll get $2,446,290. Under this whole plus partial track, we get $1,647,000 plus $21. So we get substantially less for a district where we really need more. Obviously, most of the council district will get more in the whole track only, except for one, Mr. Padilla, I believe. And so we're making some adjustments to try and accommodate all. But in doing that, for Mr. Padilla and others, the 10th district, which is really essentially populated and densely populated, is being hurt the most. And I would hope that you can work with some of the other members of the council who are gaining more, acquiring more under this proposed amendment to try and give us a little shift and a little consideration to increase what we're receiving over and above what we now is being proposed in this section. You want to comment, Mr. Deaton?
Well, I would just like to, I think you know that my office has worked long and hard to target as much as we could to the areas that need parks and to the extent, as Mr. Fuhrer said, to the extent allowed by the law to do that. What the census tracts, the whole versus partial tracts does is it says that if a census tract is in two council districts, then a council district gets credit for only that is that part of the census tract that is in that council district. And these census tracts are picked on the following. Above average youth in poverty, greater than 36%. Above average person, 18 years and under, above 26%. Below acreage, average acreage in park, less than 2%. And not adjacent to major parks or national forest land. We have done what we could in these census tracts to identify those areas of the city that are impoverished, have youth, and have less than their fair share of parkland. And that's why these census tracts are being targeted, and that's why the 2/3 money has to be spent in those census tracts. And as we have always, we will do our best to assist you and each council member in getting parks that will serve especially these youth, but all the youth of the city.
Okay, Mr. Hernandez.
Members of the council, I also rise to support the motion introduced by Ms. Walters, understanding it to be a compromise from the ad hoc committee's recommendation, which would have concentrated more dollars, I believe, in the park poor areas. At the same time, though, I clearly understand that council districts are going to be changing, and our focus should be more on serving the needs of communities as opposed to dividing up these monies. And so I understand Ms. Walters' motion to mean a reduction in the potential funding my district could get in regards to the ad hoc committee's recommendation. But I think it's the kind of compromise that basically allows for the expansion of park spaces in the areas where expansion needs to happen. And because of that, I'm willing to support her motion. Because I, for example, have an area called Elysian Park, but I need many pocket parks because Elysian Park as a regional park doesn't necessarily allow for kids in Pico Union to play. But we are finding that in Pico Union it's difficult to develop parks because of the availability of parcels and the cost of those parcels. And Prop K has clearly given us a vehicle to basically purchase some parcels. It hasn't given us a vehicle to develop those parcels. And so again, hopefully this Prop 12 money and this proposition that's before us will allow us to complete that work for the children in the district.
Okay, Mr. Wax.
I was going to really echo what Mr. Hernandez said. In fact, I was reading my staff's report here and it said, while option 2 gives us more money, option 3 is really the fairest and most objective way when you consider the city's needs. And I think that that is the kind of approach we have to take. And so I'm going to support Ms. Walters' motion.
Okay, Ms. Walters, you want to quit while you're ahead, or you want to talk some more?
No, I just want to thank Ron Deaton, CLA's office, and the steering committee for working so hard on this, and also my staff, Rodney Collins. It's been a long time coming, and I'm pleased that we can get it moving.
All right, thank you. So, as I understand it, Ms. Walters' motion would supersede all of the committee reports that are listed.
It's
Okay.
adoption of A and B.
This is adoption of A and B, correct. 34A and B. Open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
Those are approved and adopted, and forthwith on that.
And
I
now the
understand.
ordinance, which
And
takes in the changes.
The ordinance, sorry, say again, which
The
includes
ordinance
the
takes in
changes.
the changes of the motions.
Okay, open the roll on the ordinance, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
That is approved forthwith on that, too. And I understand the city attorney had a request.
Madam President, number 49 needs to be taken before we lose the quorum. There's an
Well,
ordinance.
we're not going to lose a quorum, but we are going to lose 12.
Right.
But you need us to do it before
For
we
the
lose 12?
ordinance, yes.
Well, I would like to apologize to the people who've been waiting all day for 46, because we keep winding up with these other things here. But because we have 12 people and 2 of them have to leave, I'm afraid we're going to have to take 49. I do have one card on 49. Mr. McQuiston, are you here? He's not here. Not here. All right. Thank you, Hal. In that case, the public hearing is closed, and item 49 is before us. Members of the council? Hal, just get this man something to eat. Okay, open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
That is approved. Forthwith on that, too, Mr. Burnson and Ms. Mizikowski are now excused. Thank you. And we are finally, we are at item 46. Mr. Savornich, if I could prevail upon you, since this is my motion.
The chair recognizes Council President Pro Tem Galanter.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President. There are a number of people here who wish to be heard, and I certainly look forward to hearing from them. I want to clarify for the members of the committee that at the last meeting when we brought this in and we did not have 10 members here who could consider it, I amended the motion on the floor. So what you see on the agenda is an A version and a B version. What I had moved last time and will move again is motion B, which is the amended version of A. And a number of people have written or asked questions about what this implies about the price that I'm suggesting the state pay for the land. So I wanted to take a moment before we start the public hearing to point out that I actually have a fair amount of experience with the way the state purchases land. I worked for 6 years just prior to this job as a consultant to 2 different state agencies that buy land, the State Coastal Conservancy and the Santa Monica Mountains Conservancy. And the procedure whenever the state buys land is that, except in dire circumstances, they insist upon a willing seller, which I have hopes of creating in this case, and they then adopt a process in which the seller gets an appraisal of the property, the state hires an appraiser who does an appraisal for the state. They find out how much difference there is between the two. Frequently there is not a whole lot of difference. Sometimes there's a sizable difference. And then the state negotiates within those parameters. There is nothing in this motion, nor would I suggest adding anything to suggest that the state pay anything other than what is a fair price, unless we can get it for less. But certainly there is no, I do not wish to imply in any way that we should be paying more than a fair price for this property. So I want to allay any concerns any of you may have that this is a sort of blanket order to go out and spend at whatever cost. This is a motion to endorse, should the opportunity arise, if we haven't spent it all on electricity by the time we have an opportunity to arise, that if the legislature is ready to contemplate such a thing or the governor's office is ready to contemplate such a thing, that they would know that we in the city of Los Angeles are in favor of seeing the areas west of Lincoln Boulevard acquired by the state or somebody else who can protect them and restore the environmental resources that exist on those lands.
Thank you, Madam President. The chair recognizes Councilman Fuhr. Okay. We do have 11 persons that wish to speak. And what I'm going to ask, since we have 11 persons willing to speak, that each of you are given the opportunity to speak for 2 minutes. And I'm going to call the opponents first, followed by the proponents. And I'll call you in groups of 3 or 4. And if you could please line up behind the podium in order that we can just proceed quickly, I would appreciate it. So here we go. Kathy Knight, Adelia Linares, Jesse Hairston, and Mike Stevens. If you folks could please line up and you may begin. Ms. Knight?
Yes, thank you. My name is Kathy Knight. I'm with representing Spirit of the Sage Council and Grassroots Coalition today, and also Airport Marina Sierra Club. Basically, we're glad that Councilwoman Ruth Galanter is moving in this direction, the whole City Council, towards acquiring the Ballona ecosystem. Unfortunately, at this time, we can't support this motion for several reasons, and I want to make it clear why. First of all, the motion has a lot of whereas language. It's very pro-development of east of Lincoln. We would like to see that language removed from this motion. It's not on the agenda, but it's in the actual motion in the file. Also, it's not, some of the issues on this resolution are not clear. The market value needs to be taken into consideration, the gas problem here. It's a very tricky situation here. Playa Capital and the Southern California Gas Company are currently have to remediate this land. There's hundreds of oil wells. They're leaking to the surface. And we don't want to take away their having to remediate this land and put it on the state's burden. Also, we'd like to call your attention that Bolsa Chica, if you take the same price paid for Bolsa Chica, that would be about $10 million for everything west of Lincoln. We only have $25 million so far in the pot to buy Bionah, so we really need to be careful how much we pay for this. We've entered a letter into the record giving a lot of the problems we have with the gas issue. Basically, there's no school for this development east of Lincoln. We want to be very clear, since the motion talks about east of Lincoln development, that you really need to do a proper study east of Lincoln. We thought when Councilman Michael Fuhrer had a hearing last spring that we would get an independent study on the gas problem. It's becoming very unindependent. Our understanding is that the studies are being done again by the Playa Vista consultants. Spare the Sage Council Grassroots has saved you millions of dollars in lawsuits by bringing this gas issue to your attention before the housing is built. We're trying to get you to pay attention again that you need to do a proper oil field study on this area. And also, we don't want any behind-the-scenes swaps going on that happened last fall. Basically, we also want to call your attention, beside the comments we handed in today, that the development east of Lincoln with the $70 million tax-free housing bonds, everyone involved in this development east of Lincoln are limited liability companies to our knowledge, including Morgan Stanley, Dean Witter, and Goldman Sachs. They form limited liability companies to build on the worst gas seep known in this country, to our knowledge.
Thank you, ma'am.
And I just want to finish up
Please.
that the Los Angeles City Council is the only one on the hook for the development east of Lincoln with unlimited liability for the Los Angeles City taxpayers. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. Next speaker.
Hi, my name is Jesse. I live in West LA. I just think that the wetlands should be saved and preserved. And we only have 5% of the wetlands, and why make it practically no percent? And in my future, I would like to see my kids to be able to see it as a park. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next.
Hi, my name is Idalia, and I agree with him on saving the wetlands because animals deserve a home just as much as humans do. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Sir.
Yes, my name is Mike Stevens. I'm president of LAX Expansion. No, I'd just like to say this, that in reference to this item, number 46, in reference to Bologna wetlands, you have an element there that deals with low to moderate income housing. So you list it there. You could have used Manchester Square as that, with no cost to this city. It would have been paid for. The low moderate income housing would have been paid for by Los Angeles International Airport, who will be moving closer right upon the city of Inglewood in the 405 freeway, your neighbors of Los Angeles. Now, I'm going to speak on the public comments portion, and I hope that I'll be recognized, since Ms. Galanter, who I thought was my friend, my ally, chose not to allow me to even speak after the residents came here and sat here for 2 hours. We're not even allowed to speak after filling out cards. So I hope that you'll recognize my card when it comes time for public comments, because I have a few words I'd like to say to Ms. Galanter. And thank you.
Thank you, sir. And now we have individuals who I've listed on the card as proponents. Let me call a few of them: Ruth Lansford, Rick Mia, Lloyd Heald, Terry Connor. That's the first group.
Yes, my name is Ruth Lansford, and I'm president of Friends of Bionah Wetlands. Friends of Bionah Wetlands endorses Councilwoman Ruth Galanter's motion to support the public acquisition of Playa Vista areas west of Lincoln Boulevard for permanent environmental protection. As the organization that for over 20 years has fought to protect, preserve, and restore the Bionah wetlands, we are optimistic about prospects for increasing the preservation area from the 340 acres the Friends won in their settlement agreement with the landowner by adding the remaining acreage west of Lincoln Boulevard. Friends of Bionah Wetlands' goal has always been to protect as much of this precious and rare habitat as possible. But in consultation with our biologists, we also have arrived at a set of priorities for the wetlands. They are, number one, to ensure the protection, restoration, and long-term maintenance of the salt marsh by A, negotiating a deal with Playa Capital that keeps them on the hook as they are now because of our settlement agreement to restore it, create a long-term maintenance fund, and deed the land to the state, or B, by acquiring the land from the developer and setting aside enough public funds to restore the salt marsh and create a long-term maintenance fund. 2, to acquire the residential portion of Area B for upland habitat adjacent to the salt marsh. 3, to acquire Area A and restore the existing degraded wetlands, creating a connection to the Ballona Channel and the salt marsh. And 4, to acquire Area C as additional wetland support area or parkland. If all 4 of these objectives are financially obtainable, the Friends enthusiastically support that proposal. However, if they are not all possible, we must make sure that the first items on the priority list are satisfied before we look to the bottom of the list. The EIS-EIR for Phase 2 of Playa Vista that includes Area A and B residential will be on the street this spring. And although it may be a long, bruising fight, both areas are legally developable. So the Friends believe the acquisition of Areas A and B residential is an immediate need.
Thank you, ma'am. If you could finish up.
Okay. We ask that priority be given to those areas with the most valuable habitat and the most potential for restoration. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Mia?
Hi, my name is Rick Mejia, and I'm the Executive Director of Venice Barrios Unidos. For the past year, I've committed myself to my family, my children, but they've taught me that other families are in need of our services. So I thank the opportunity to speak to you, and I just wanted to say, as a member of the community, I am here to express my feelings about any moves to cut back on Playa Vista's development. I think the Councilmember Galanter's motion is a good balance between development and environment. I get concerned when I hear that some people want to turn all of Playa Vista into a big park. Let me briefly explain why. These are real jobs for people who are desperately in need of help. We all heard about PV Jobs, the program where Playa Vista is setting aside 10% of all the construction jobs for at-risk youth and young adults in the community. This is a great program and has already made a difference in getting people off the street and on the right track. I've also heard when some people are saying that the affordable homes that Playa Vista is building don't mean anything. Every little bit helps. There is so little housing of any kind on the west side that just drives up prices for all of us. Cutting what little new housing there is will just make things worse. The best thing about Playa Vista's housing plans is that not only will they give a chance for more people to live on the west side, but even the affordable housing will be top quality. Playa Vista will mean thousands of jobs to the community over the next 10 years, and these are jobs that you should not cut back. For what I understand, Playa Vista is already making half its development into parks and other open spaces. The motion before you would add to that, but would not go too far, and I am here to support it. So please do the right thing and continue to support Playa Vista in our community. Playa Vista are one of the few shining lights. Please let's be fair to all the people. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Lloyd Hild?
Members of the council, my name is Lloyd Hild. I'm a past president of the Westchester Marina Del Rey Chamber of Commerce, and I've come to speak today in support of Playa Vista and of Councilwoman Galanter's motion as a reflection of a good balance of continued development in that area, as well as something in the best interest of the community for more open space and public parklands. You may remember that a couple of years ago there was a study by Ernst & Young, and it's not been mentioned recently, but I'd like to tell you some of the things that they suggested that would happen if Playa Vista continues to be developed. First is that it would project a projected income to the area of approximately $5 billion a year, and also as many as 57,000 additional new permanent jobs in the area. And in doing that, it will generate substantial revenues for the city and county. It's estimated that approximately $38 million for both the city and the county would be generated in annual revenues, and that the county itself would gain an additional 2,000 jobs to those other 57,000. The first phase of this project will develop nearly 41% of that revenue and job that I'm referring to. There's a direct relationship between a growing economy and home values, and Playa Vista offers high-quality homes and high-quality jobs, and it would be a welcome addition to the community. I'm sure you're aware that also Playa Vista is a model of sustainable development. That is, its high environmental values have been built in, and it includes the restoration of Bologna wetlands, and that over half of the park the development is reserved for open space. Therefore, at this time, I'm urging you to support Playa Vista and Councilwoman Galanter's motion that the land be acquired by the state. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Terry Connor.
Good afternoon. My name is Terry Connor, and I'm president of the Villa Marina Council, a 1,500-unit condominium association immediately adjacent to the area that we're talking about. I'm here to support Councilwoman Galanter's motion to acquire the area west of Lincoln Boulevard and use it for permanent environmental protection or recreation uses. It's unfortunate that so many people from outside the city of Los Angeles have been pressuring the city and the developer to make decisions regarding the use of this. I think the city of Los Angeles is perfectly capable of reviewing this property and working with Playa Vista to create what's best for our community without having people from Santa Monica and Malibu tell us what to do. I hope the council will continue to balance the need for open space with the need for jobs and housing. In this case, it's important to maintain all of the area west of Lincoln as open space. Equally, it is critical to develop the rest of Playa Vista to address the needs for more housing and jobs in our economy. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. The three final speakers that we have are Dr. James Moore, Sasha Karlik, and Rex Frankel. In that order. Dr. Moore?
Good morning. Not quite good morning, good afternoon. I'm here to speak in support of Ruth Galanter's motion to acquire the land west of Lincoln. We're all aware that we need jobs, housing, and we need open space. These are two competing, very important goals, and I think this proposal is a reasonable way to approach both of them. I also want to mention that we all know that development is rampant on the west side. There are dozens of projects going on, and as far as I can tell, Playa Vista is the only developer that has taken seriously the issue that is dear to the hearts of many of us that live in that area of traffic. They have done and are doing a tremendous number of things to improve the traffic flow, and I compare this with a number of the projects I'm aware of around there that are doing little or nothing at all. I urge the council to support this motion and this project. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Hello. My name is Sasha Karlik. I'm a resident of Westchester, and I would like to express my desire to see the wetlands protected, and any development that takes place should now more than ever be more than carefully assessed and analyzed to be completely sustainable. And I just see that all the free open space is disappearing everywhere. And these lands are critical to the wildlife, to migratory birds. And I support the acquisition of land for total preservation and for zero development in the Ballona wetlands open space. I just hope that people can take a look and see the beauty that's there that's going to be destroyed. You know, you can't restore something that's been bulldozed and asphalted and built upon. It's just, you know, the two things don't go together. So that's basically what all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Frankel?
I guess I'm summing up. I'm Rex Frankel.
I'm chair of the Sierra Club's Airport Marina Group. I'm also president of the Baiona Ecosystem Education Project. I've been working for 15 years now to save all of the Playa Vista and Baiona wetlands property as open space. I support 100% open space as part of this resolution. I don't support the whereases that are also part of the resolution, which seem to justify the Playa Vista development. We don't need any more development of this property at all. You talk about in the resolution a severe housing shortage in the city, and yet today you've okayed leveling another several hundred homes near the airport, which will of course encourage the expansion of the airport, which I felt that our councilwoman, Ms. Galanter, is opposed to the expansion of the airport, although she's supporting buying out homes, which the airport wants to then expand and put more airport facilities in the places where those homes are. Those are affordable housing that shouldn't be leveled. The airport expansion includes a lot of other homes and neighborhoods that will be leveled along the freeway where they want to be building and widening the freeway. So if you're concerned with affordable housing, oppose the airport expansion. Why at Playa Vista, when they talk about the affordable housing that they're building, why are fully 3/4 of the housing that they're building only for rich people? The fact is that why do their affordable housing units are costing more than twice as much as comparable affordable housing units that are being built right now in other areas of the city? Is that money being siphoned off into certain people's pockets? I don't know. All I realize is that Playa Vista is ripping off the taxpayers in huge amounts. Another hidden whereas that's in this motion says Playa Vista's development will help the balance of jobs and housing and that this will reduce traffic jams and smog. On the contrary, studies by the Southern California Association of Governments and Orange County found even with a balance you'd still have devastating traffic jams since 70% of major highway traffic is pass-through. It's not locally generated traffic. You can't build your way out of this problem. You can't build another Manhattan Island here and expect the traffic to be like it is in Kansas. On the contrary, LA City is severely lacking in open space. It has only 1/4 of its open space standard. By acquiring and preserving all the properties in the Playa Vista area, including the Baiona West Bluffs, including the state-owned Parcel C and the rest of the properties owned by Playa Capital Corporation, you'll be going a long way towards solving the deficit of open space, which is much worse than any deficit that we have of housing or any other needs that our city planners may be telling us. So again, I'm speaking to urge you to acquire everything at Playa Vista. Don't sacrifice any of it, and that's about it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. I see no other cards for public comments at this time. The chair recognizes Councilman Fewer.
Thank you, Mr. President. I wanted to rise in support of amending motion 21A. And what I want to say is this. To those who have expressed concern about what might happen to Parcel C, it's premature to know. This motion does not assume the development of that parcel. 21A, I'll point out to those who spoke, contains only an amendment to the moving clause. And although we spend a lot of time with the early language of our motions, it's the moving clause that matters. And in this case, 21A speaks to the acquisition of most of the territory at issue here, which all of us should support. There's not a single person who testified who I would gather objects to that acquisition. The contention comes with respect to anything else. This motion doesn't speak to anything else in its moving clause. That's for a later day. We can have that debate then. But for today, I can see no reason at all not to strongly support Ms. Galanter's effort to see that the vast majority of lands at issue be acquired. Who could oppose that? For the next day is the discussion of what, if any, part of Phase 2 of Playa Vista ought to move forward. Many of us have strong views about that, not for this moment. So I'm a strong supporter of amending motion 21A. Oh, okay, it's 46, I'm sorry, 46. Yes, 46B is actually what is technically called for us today. It was 21A in a prior agenda item, I believe. So strong supporter of 46B. I did want to ask this, the one question that I think Ms. Galanter already answered arises from Mr. Villaraigosa's letter to us regarding his suggestion that we add language that we purchase at the lowest feasible price. I think what Ms. Galanter's point was is that we purchase for what the appraisal says it's worth, which would in fact be the lowest feasible acquisition price, correct?
Yes. I mean, actually, it's because of Mr. Villaraigosa's letter, among others, that I made the point earlier.
So.
But we're not going to be negotiating the price. The
Right.
City Council of Los Angeles would not do that. It would be the the state of California through their normal property acquisition process.
But I guess my point is the absence of the language which Antonio
Doesn't mean
proposes
anything.
doesn't affect in any way our being able to dip into the pool of funds that might be out there to purchase.
Well,
these aren't magic words that are required
no,
to be
no,
imported
they're
into
not
this.
magic words. The state will not buy it if they don't think the price is fair,
Right.
and certainly I would not support buying
Agreed.
it if the price wasn't fair.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fuhr. The chair recognizes Councilman Wax.
Well, I basically really wanted to echo what Mr. Fuhrer says. I think that I don't see how anyone could disagree with what Ms. Galanter is trying to achieve by this specific motion in terms of everything to the west is going to be preserved, and what's going to happen to the east is for another day to be determined through a process which will be hopefully as open and as participatory as any that we could imagine, and we'll just have to deal with that as it comes along. But I think Mike made it very clear what's before us today is, I think, an exceptional effort, and I think it's a big victory that ought to be applauded to make sure that everything to make sure that everything west of Lincoln is going to be preserved is a pretty major thing, from where I remember this being discussed many years ago at its inception. So, and then we still have within us all of the authority and the power to deal with the portions that haven't yet been dealt with to the east. And I assure you, I can imagine those will be very, very contentious, heated, as they should be, discussions. But to not go ahead with this because we're maybe worried with what happened with that, I think would be foolhardy. And you know, this is a great bird in hand, and I think that you take it. Congratulate you. We can get it.
Thank you, Mr. Wax. The chair recognizes Councilman Hernandez.
Members of council, I kind of rise to, again, echo what I've heard, but really put an emphasis on people understanding a process. It is the state that's purchasing the land, not the city. And the state does require a willing seller. To get a willing seller, I think you always want to deal with where you can get that accomplished the fastest. And then negotiate that price is a complicated process when it comes to the state purchasing these sites. And I want to explain why. We passed a state referendum that says so many dollars are designated for this park space. And that referendum says you have to have a willing seller. The governor has stated that. I'm dealing with those same kinds of issues at Taylor Yard. So the setting of the price is a complicated process. So the quicker you identify the parcels that can be purchased because you have a willing seller and you can negotiate that price, you're setting some precedents for future negotiations. I'm just trying to clear that step up, because what happens with us here at the city, time and time again, by the time we get through the process of the appraisal, the price goes up. Because now the property owner says, I could put apartment buildings there. It's zoned for manufacturing, and things change. So to me, the city taking a position on what we'd like to see happen today is important. And the state taking a position on what they can acquire today is important. And naturally, it should be at the lowest particular price. I'm kind of saying that because I'm going through the same kind of thing at Taylor Yard. The problem is the railroad knows the state has $45 million. And we're trying to make sure that the parcel that makes the most sense for parkland is acquired immediately. And that price tag be negotiated immediately, because it's what's left that the railroad's going to have to deal with. And so from my perspective, I want to support the council taking an action. I will support the motion 46B, and then we will be going from that. And the fact that we passed this motion doesn't mean the state's going to buy it. They're not the city of Los Angeles, as I get reminded all the time by the state of California.
Thank you, Mr. Hernandez. The chair recognizes Councilman Holden.
I move the previous question, the entire matter.
Okay. Is there any objection to the previous question? Okay, seeing not, the item is before us. Mr. Clerk?
There's a motion on the desk, Galanter motion to approve B.
Okay. Mr. Clerk, would you open the roll on 46B and tabulate the vote?
10 ayes.
That item is approved. Forthwith. Okay. Next item, Mr. Clerk.
Not on the agenda is Special 1. Findings need to be made. It's a motion by Galanter-Chick.
Mr. City Attorney, Special 1.
Yeah, Mr. President, members, this is a motion that would have the effect of instructing the city attorney and other city departments and agencies to prepare the necessary ordinance and other documents to place on the June 2001 ballot a measure to amend the charter to allow the city to enact an ordinance to allow reactivation of surviving spouse benefits to those who remarried prior to the enactment of Charter Amendment D. In order for the council to consider this motion, it is necessary that a finding be made that there is a need to take immediate action on this matter and that the need for action came to the attention of the council subsequent to the posting of today's agenda.
Okay. Let us first vote on the findings. Mr. Clerk, would you open the roll on this item and tabulate the vote?
10 ayes.
Okay, the item is now before us. Mr. Deaton?
Mr. President, members of the council, basically this is a proposal that some years ago there was allowing widows of fire and police to have surviving pension benefits. There was a cutoff date. This would allow by ordinance the council and the mayor to extend that back in time at the point in time we can make the determination of the fiscal impact. This would be an enabling charter language and allow you to act in the future on this issue by ordinance. And is recommended by my office and ORS.
Okay, is there any council member that wishes to speak on Special 1? Chair recognizes Councilman Wax.
Yeah, this is our motion. It really addresses an inequity in a way that could be done expeditiously. If we were to wait for the requisite study, we would miss a time period in which this could go on the ballot till 2002 or something. In this way, if you continue ahead with this study now, and this is adopted, we can correct this inequity in a much quicker period of time, and it would benefit those surviving spouses. So.
We don't anticipate, by the way, the cost to be very substantial, but we just have not completed the investigation.
Is there any other council member that wishes to speak? Chair recognizes Councilman Holden.
Right. What about current law? You saying if they get married, they still get the pension, they don't get the pension?
Under current law, if they get married, they still get the pension. This
Okay.
would apply to the people who had gotten married prior to the enactment of the Charter Amendment in 1996.
So the Charter Amendment provided the opportunity or privilege, if you will, for them to get the pension if they got married. Is that correct?
If they got, correct, if they got remarried.
If they got remarried? Right. Nah. But the ones who got married before that time, they don't get the benefits, is that correct?
That's right.
Correct.
Okay. So what this amendment will do is allow them to have the same rights and privileges as if the new charter were in effect at the time they got married, is that correct?
Correct.
It allows you by ordinance to do that.
Retroactive.
Retroactive.
Now, but the fact of the matter is that, but when they got married, they knew at the time they were giving up their rights for the pension. Is that correct? Yes or no?
Yes.
Right. So now they're saying that even though I've given up my rights for the pension, these other women are not getting it. Why can't I? And so what you're saying is that you're not going to provide some pension money to some individuals who never anticipated, never expected it, and therefore felt that their financial status was good enough for them to give up the pension, so that's why they got married. Now, in some cases, what they usually do, they just don't legalize anything. They get the pension and they go ahead and do what they have to do. But they made a conscious decision to give up the pension and get married. Now, if this were the case, for an example, they gave up the pension, they got married, and they subsequently got a divorce, and they have kids under the age of 18 or 21, then I could say yes. But I have some concerns about helping out this new husband. Because you're not really just talking about
Two things, Mr. Holden. One is this allows you by ordinance to do something. This isn't the decision to do it or not to do it. It's the future. It allows us that prerogative.
But you understand what I'm saying?
Yes, but I'd like to clarify, that's my second point. What we did by doing this is we put those widows in a very awkward position, and they did have the choice of either getting married or, as you characterize it, do whatever they had to do. And so I think there's an inequity that we created, and I think we should look at addressing that inequity.
And how about the new husband?
I haven't met him, so I...
Chair recognizes Councilman Hernandez.
Being that I heard my colleague's speech, I just thought I'd speak on behalf of those widowers who chose not to remarry so they could keep their pension. And we should give them the opportunity to remarry for love and for family values if they choose to do that. And we shouldn't create a financial incentive for them not to do that because they're entitled to this pension because they are widowers.
Couldn't agree more.
Is there any other council member that wishes to speak on this item? Seeing none, Mr. Clerk, would you open the roll on Special 1 and tabulate the vote?
10 ayes.
That item is approved forthwith. Thank you. Next item, Mr. Clerk.
Motions for posting and referral.
Without objection, so posted and so referred.
Council members request to be excused from council attendance. Councilmember Chick requests to be excused on Wednesday, February 14th to leave at noon, Tuesday, February 20th to arrive at 11 a.m., and Wednesday, February 28th to leave at noon for personal and city business meets policy.
So ordered.
The desk is clear.
I believe we have public comment.
Oh, excuse me, public comment.
We do have some folks that want to be heard in regards to public comment, and I will call your name in groups of 3, and if you could please line up behind the podium, we would appreciate it. Mr. Michael St. Hill, Melrose Larry Green, Richard Robinson. Those are the first 3. Mr. St. Hill, I believe you were first. Go right ahead, sir.
Hello, my name is Michael H. St. Hill. I just moved from New York to California, and I found out that all the things you heard on the TV and in the other states about LA is possibly true. Referring to the corruption in the police department and the racial profiling of black folk. I'm not a racist person, and I am not a law breaker in any form or shape, and I don't think I should be racially profiled, and I don't think I should be followed where I go, every place I go, be harassed in any form, shape. I don't think it's fair, and I wrote to the mayor, I wrote to Deputy Mayor Valenti, I wrote to Hillerman, I wrote to several of the departments in the police department, even the chief, asking why am I being harassed. Here again, I'm not a lawbreaker then or now. I follow the law, and I shouldn't be harassed in any form or shape. Another thing, I live in a Section 8 apartment, and it's a Section 8 that is governed by SRO housing. I believe that this is at the Leonard Apartments, and this apartment is, you have, Section 8 has 0.9% of the tenants there, all lawbreakers, and it's not safe in these in this dwelling. But yet you have the Section 8 that you cannot move it and go to another dwelling, and I think that is not fair because it's total harassment living in a Section 8 that you have to deal with. 99% ex-cons and stalkers of all kinds and rapists of all kinds. But of course, the racial profiling is the most important issue, and I would like to leave a letter explaining the whole. And, thank you, gentlemen, very much.
Thank you,
Ladies,
sir.
have a
Mr.
nice
Green.
day.
Thank you. Mr. Green.
How are you, folks? Now, when this thing is replayed tonight, it'll be 10 o'clock. I'm probably competing against Survivor or Temptation Island or something else, but I hope people are watching this meeting. My name is Melrose Larry Green, and this is public comment. I want to refer to an article in today's New York Times, Tuesday, February 13th, and this is about an issue that relates to the city of L.A., and it might be too hot to handle for the city council, but I didn't hear this discussed this morning or this afternoon or this evening if you're watching on the replay. There was a man named Carlos Vignali who was pardoned by Bill Clinton. Now, I don't need to give a lecture to Mike Hernandez and Nate Holden and Councilman Pacheco and Padilla and many of the others who represent minority constituents about the power of the scourge of drugs and what crack cocaine does to our communities, to destroy our communities. But Carlos Vignali was convicted of helping to convert 800 pounds of powder cocaine to crack and selling it in Minnesota. I repeat, Carlos Vignali was convicted of converting 800 pounds of cocaine powder to crack cocaine, and he was pardoned by Bill Clinton. And Cardinal Mahoney today apologizes for writing a letter on the recommendation of Antonio Villaraigosa and Xavier Becerra and Lee Baca, recommending the pardon of Carlos Vignali. What kind of message does that send to your constituents, Mr. Hernandez, and your constituent, Mr. Holden, and your constituent, Mr. Pacheco, and your constituent, Mr. Padilla, and your constituent, Mr. Ridley Thomas, and your constituents, Ms. Walters, that are in jail for having a, well, they may not be able to vote for you, but still your constituents, they're in jail. And I want this city council to say something about special interests that think they're above the law. That's why I'm staying here till 1 o'clock. And all the other people that are running for mayor, they ought to be here. Because not everything about politics is just shaking hands and kissing babies. This is the nuts and bolts of politics. I learned a lot from this meeting. And anybody who wants to be mayor of L.A. shouldn't write letters to pardon drug dealers. They'll come down here and see who runs the city. Because you know what? You 15 people are really the mayors of L.A. You are the 15 mayors of L.A., and the mayor is nothing but a rubber stamp and a figurehead. You run the city, and if I ever do become mayor of L.A., I will work with you, probably for you, but definitely not against you. So let's see the city of L.A. do something to talk about these phony pardons. And you know what, Nate? I used to be a Democrat, but unlike Joel Wax and Steve Soboroff, that now call themselves independents and wavering, I'm proud to be a Republican. I'm proud to be a Republican. Maybe a Jewish one. Well, I read that you're an independent, Joel. I guess you can't trust the media. But I'm a Republican. And I know you are, Rudy Savornich, Mr. President Pro Tem. Don't be ashamed to be a Republican. Thank you. About 3 months ago, I decided to become a candidate. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's hear it for Melrose Larry Green here. Mr. President, members. Because you were not with former Los Angeles City Council person Ernardi Bernardi last night at Victory in Vineland in North Hollywood, you missed an event any music lover appreciates. Mr. President, he broke loose and swung. His swinging aggregation gives the word syncopation a new definition. The former arranger and saxophonist for Tommy and Jimmy Dorsey and Benny Goodman blew the roof off Leon's. Mr. Bernardi has a CD for sale. He also has a site on the World Wide Web. You can reach Mr. Bernardi at www.nonisource.com. That's N-O-N-I, Noni Source. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. The next speakers, is it Cecil Smith? Nancy Moten. I cannot read this one. It's a member of LAXEN. Is it S-L-U-G-H-T-E-R? Slaughter. Ms. Slaughter or Mr. Slaughter. Kathy Knight and Mike Stevens. Mr. Smith?
Good afternoon. I'm Cecil Smith, and in the interest of time, the House have already been addressed. And getting to the point, the Department of Airports, I've been a resident of the city of Inglewood for 40 years. I moved there in '61. And the airport there have long since went past its point of saturation. For health and safety reasons, and for the city of Inglewood, it most adversely, negatively affects them environmentally in a negative sense. So we recommend, I'm a member of Laxon, and to bring this airport to a close, don't expand it any further. 35 or 40 years ago, there was a plan to build an airport in Palmdale. So what happened to that plan? I believe it is just as far from here to there as it is from there to here. So I would rather drive out there. Really, this morning, noise is roaring over my head, and I live on 83rd Street, 5 miles from the airport, just north of the contour that has been declared impactive. So there's a lot I could say, and a lot of these measures and issues, it is setting in motion a plan to expand this airport further for the sake of the mighty dollar. So isn't there a humane element involved? The same money that's building there to stack that up, build the one in Palmdale. So it's not only me, I'll soon be gone, but I've got children, grandchildren, and young neighbors that lived in that neighborhood that deserve the same opportunity that I enjoyed and that I have benefited over the last 40 years. So please, I urge you to vote in favor of bringing that airport to a halt and working for the benefit of the people. So if you will do that, we would certainly appreciate it. Thank you for this space.
Thank you, sir. Ma'am?
I'm Nancy Moten, and Mike Stevens is the president of LA Extension, and I'm a member. And I would like to know, when you tear down all these people's homes just to give them a job, where will they go at nighttime when it's time to sleep? There's no place to go. You can't just work. And I'm against the expansion. So please, stop it.
Thank you, ma'am. Ma'am?
Pro-Mayor, Council. Name is Velma Slaughter, and I'm a resident of Inglewood. And I'm with Mike Stevens, and I'm totally against LAX expansion, no, with Laxon. I have lived in Inglewood for 27 years, and I have seen many changes relating to the air traffic over me. I am not in the contour to have my home insulated, but airplanes fly over me 24/7 at very low altitude. Plus, they fly east and west at the same time, which is very dangerous. Now, God made all living creatures. I love animals and everything, just like everyone else. But let's think about the people, the safety of the people. What about us? We got people that have cancer, bronchitis, asthma, it's been tested more in Inglewood than any place. We're living in a sut zone, and it's getting worse. And all we asking and pleading for you guys to do is please stop the expansion of LAX. It is dangerous. It's against our health. It's affecting us more and more. Each day, we cannot sleep. We have cracked windows. You have lights being cracked. I have lights being cracked in my house. Your paint is being damaged on your car. You know, and we talk about, you know, saving butterflies and saving animals. Yes, some for them too, but what about saving the humans? Okay, that's what you guys need to look at. And this here thing about, you know, passing the buck from here to there to lining your pockets, I'm against that. Let's think about humans. And also, you people that have the power, that the people have given to you, well, just think about who gave you the power that you have and I have. The man up above give all us the power. And this is to Miss Ruth Galanton. I have came to a lot of her meetings, and I thought she was for us against LAX when I came in here today. But now I realize that she's with LAX. And you can understand that I never will believe anything else you have to say, Miss Galanton.
Mailing list.
Thank you very much. Because you are a liar. And you are with the LAX to line your pockets just like all the rest of them.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. Kathy Knight?
Good afternoon. I just wanted to finish giving you an update on the Plivus development east of Lincoln. I ran out of time. With the $40 million tax-free housing bonds, they put in a methane mitigation barrier for the toxic gas that has an 85% failure rate. With all the H2S that's documented by the Regional Water Quality Control Board and your city documents over the entire site, there still has not been an H2S study done. The study is being done under the independent study that Michael Fuhr talked to us about last spring. Unfortunately, it's been a big disappointment to us, and we would like to talk to Councilman Fuhr about that. A lot of the studies are still being done by the Playa Vista consultants, people they're hiring, and again, that's what got into trouble, where you didn't even know there was any gas back in '93 because of them using their own people. And we've also been told that some of the studies are being commissioned by their attorneys, Latham and Watkins, so there's a client privilege going on there, and which means that we can't even see them as public documents. So the information is tightening up and closing down on the toxic gas issue at Playa Vista. Also, I want to let you know that the thousands of pilings that Playa Vista is putting into the 50-foot gravel zone where the high pressure gas is, it's bringing the gas up to the top. Your own consultant is telling you this. So the thousands of pilings that are being used for the wetland soil is bringing the gas up to the surface and creating the hazard. And the reason I want to call this to your attention is that last month in Kansas City, we had a similar situation where there's a huge explosion from an underground gas storage facility that leaks 7 miles, not 1 mile that we have here at Playa Vista, but 7 miles into the city of Hutchinson, Kansas, killed a husband and wife, blew up their mobile home, damaged 26 businesses. They had to evacuate 38 blocks. Some of the people still can't go back into their home. And it came up just like here at Playa Vista. They were old abandoned oil wells. It came up the oil wells and the fractured shale, just like we have here at Playa Vista. So I want to call your attention to the fact we had a very recent example of what we're very concerned about. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Stevens?
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Mike Stevens. Mr. Wax, Mr. Padilla, Ms. Galanter, Mr. Hernandez, Mr. Holden, Mr. Thomas. I'm here today, we came here today, and we started our day early at 9 o'clock, and we came to the Commerce Energy Committee meeting. We gave our presentation, and it was acknowledged of our presentation, and we came here prepared. It's what I'm trying to explain to you. What we hoped today to have done was then to bring our presentation before you, because we still believe in democracy. All we wanted to be was heard. That's all we wanted. But yet we were denied by Ms. Galanter. So what I'd like to do at this time is show you what we were not allowed to show you by Ms. Galanter, because all we really wanted was a public hearing. Something that the City of Inglewood, South Central Los Angeles, Westchester, Osage has not been awarded. That's all we wanted. And we were denied that today, which is why Ms. Slaughter made the statement that she made. We've walked for Ruth Galanter. We've been out there for Ruth Galanter. We've defended Ruth Galanter for the past 2 years. When our mayor talked about Ruth Galanter, we came to her defense. And then she humiliates us to the public. So let's get on with our presentation.
Mr. Stevens, with all due respect, public comment is for items that were not on the agenda. There was an opportunity to be heard in Commerce Committee this morning, and the item did not receive a motion from the council during the period of what it was to be heard to allow time to speak. If you would like to continue on public comment in regards to items that were not posted on the agenda, you are welcome to, but the opportunity to talk about this item has passed.
Okay, so now we understand. Things haven't changed much from the 1950s, have they, sir? Oh, let's talk, okay, so we'll play by your rules. I can work around that. I've dealt with that type of mentality before. So
Mr.
what
Stevens,
I have here
Mr. Stevens,
635 sound health
Mr.
declarations
Stevens,
of people who have cancer.
the chair
in
is
South
not going
Central
to-
Los Angeles and Inglewood.
The chair is not going to tolerate you making disparaging remarks to the chair or to members of this council. Now, if you would like to continue in a gentlemanly fashion, I will allow you to do so. If you wish to make disparaging comments to the chair or members of the council, I will ask that you step down. Do we have an understanding?
Yes, sir, boss.
Thank you, Mr. Stevens. Public comment is now closed. Sergeant?
I would be delighted to, but I think I will decline based on the way you responded to the, I would have been delighted to. Yes, are you done now? Well, Mr. Stevens, let me say the feeling is entirely mutual, and if you don't mind, we will now close our meeting. Yes, I do.
Sergeant? Thank you, Sergeant. Mr. Clerk, next item.
The desk is clear.
Thank you very much. Do we have any adjourning motions?
There's one, Hal.
I believe we have one for Mr. Burnson. On behalf of Councilman Burnson, colleagues, I would like to ask that we adjourn in memory of Jan Stevenson Swearsman, who passed away on January 23rd, survived by a loving family, and ask that this be acknowledged. Mr. Burnson. Councilwoman?
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to ask the council to adjourn in memory of Cy Gomberg. He was a Hollywood writer, was very active in the civil liberties community. He was well known for hosting ACLU parties at his house, and not only hosting ACLU parties, but hosting candidate parties, hosting events related to school desegregation. He and his wife, Maxine, were most hospitable and made their home in Mandeville Canyon everyone's home. He is survived by his wife, Maxine, daughters, Marcia and Kathy, son, Chris, and grandchildren. His service will be tomorrow, February 14th at 2 p.m. at the Groman Eden Mortuary in Windsor, in Mission Hills.
Are there any others? Mr. Clerk, would you call the roll? Seeing no further business, this council is adjourned. Have a good day.